Chapter 881. Lu Chonglu was actually a kind and honest person. Chu Xiu said that his personality was that of a Daoist, pure and inactive. However, only Lu Chonglu himself knew that he was afraid of trouble and could not be bothered to care about other people's business. He really hoped that the underworld could be peaceful and that everyone would be fine. Those who should practice martial arts would practice martial arts, and those who should cultivate Dao would cultivate Dao. Wasn't that good? Why did they always have to kill people? Therefore, he did not understand the extremes of the Chunyang Dao sect, and he did not understand people like Chu Xiu, who obviously had a problem with their values. Lu Chonglu just sighed, turned around, and left with Chong Yunzi's corpse. Just as Chu Xiu was about to leave, he suddenly found something underground. He walked over to take a look, and it turned out to be the 2 keys that had previously entered Green Capital. However, there were cracks on them, and it was obvious that they had been destroyed. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu was stunned. This place belonged to LV Zhanlu and Helian Changfeng. Did they throw these 2 keys? When he picked it up, there were no signs of vital qi tearing on the key. Instead, it seemed to have cracked on its own. Chu Xiu immediately took out the key from his space secret box. His key was intact, and there was no sign of it being damaged. At first, Chu Xiu thought that this key could allow him to enter Green Capital without any restrictions, but now he realized that it seemed like he was wrong. It was unlikely that the things refined by the Zhou and Wang family, who were at the level of the Formation Dao family, would have such powerful functions. Every time it passed through the space, the key would definitely be impacted. Back then, the Zhou and Wang family probably did not think of repeatedly entering, so they must have refined it based on the idea of a one-time use item. However, if that was the case, why was his key fine? Chu Xiu had a vague guess. He buried the key in his hand at the side, and he walked towards the weak point of the space. The next moment, his figure fell into the space again. When he opened his eyes again, he was in the world full of yellow sand. When the thought of leaving appeared in Chu Xiu's mind, his body returned to the weak point of the space. Letting out a long sigh, Chu Xiu had already found out what was wrong. It was the heavenly key from the 6 illusory realms. Previously, because Chu Xiu had the key from the Zhou family, he didn't pay much attention to it. He always thought that it was the key's effect that allowed him to enter the green forest. However, it was only now that he was sure that the key to break the formation was not used at all. It was completely the effect of the sky-piercing key that allowed him to pass through the weak point of the space. Chu Xiu wasn't sure what this thing was, but he was certain it had something to do with space and was a supreme treasure. Otherwise, High Heaven sect would not have placed it together with a bunch of divine arts, secret techniques, and divine armaments. After Chu Xiu's soul entered the blood soul orb in the 6 illusory realms, the Heaven's link key entered as well. It even fused with Chu Xiu's body as he reconstructed it. In the beginning, Chu Xiu was indeed a little worried. He wondered if there would be any problems with such an inexplicable thing appearing in his body. However, Chu Xiu later discovered that this thing didn't seem to have any side effects, so Chu Xiu didn't care about it. He didn't expect it to have such a use. Chu Xiu thought about it, then got up and returned to the Blue Dragon Society. Just as Chu Xiu returned to the Blue Dragon Society, the entire world was blown up by a piece of news. All kinds of news and rumors could be summed up in 4 words: Chu Xiu wasn't dead. After these 4 words, the other rumors were even more shocking. Not only did Chu Xiu not die, but his strength had also improved greatly. No one knew how he managed to cultivate the true fire body, and his strength was enough to crush ordinary true fire spirit refinement realm experts. What was known now was that Butian Nan of the Blue Dragon Society died in the hands of Chu Xiu, and Chong Yunzi of the Chunyang Dao sect died in the hands of Chu Xiu. Although the Sun clan of Jiangdong and the Lu clan of Gaoping didn't have evidence to directly prove that Chu Xiu did it, the ruthless and secretive methods were very similar to Chu Xiu's. Moreover, Chu Xiu had enough reasons to kill them. These people were the ones who hit Chu Xiu when he was down, but in less than a year, they all died in the hands of Chu Xiu. His strength and means were simply shocking. Of course, more people also knew that the world would not be peaceful again. Since Chu Xiu wasn't dead, what about his enemies in the past? Would the Subodhi Zen monastery give up now that they failed to kill Chu Xiu? Chu Xiu had also killed Chang Yunzi, the head of the 6 spiritual masters of the Chunyang Dao sect. Chang Yunzi's position in the Chunyang Dao sect could be said to be second only to the sect master. How could the Chunyang Dao sect let it go? Moreover, there were divine generals of Elysium among them. Just thinking about it made people feel that it was troublesome. Therefore, when the news spread to the world, some people were happy, while others were worried. Of course, those who were happy were those around Chu Xiu. In a secret place of the Immortal clan in eastern Qi, Wuxia sat on a reclining chair with his eyes half closed, like an old man sunbathing. However, in fact, the whole secret room only had dim candlelight, which made it extremely gloomy. Chu Wuji sat next to Wuxia and said with a rare gloomy expression, "Today, someone tested me again. They want you to take out the inheritance of the Kunlun devil cult and cultivate another person who can support the Immortal clan. Who is it this time?" Wuxia said slowly. Chu Wuji snorted and said, "It's the ghost underworld sect's curmudgeon Situ. That guy doesn't show up usually, but he's very quick at reaping benefits. There are less than 10 people left in the ghost underworld sect, including himself. They were going to disband completely, but who knows where he found a talented young man and gave him all his money. Now he's trying to take advantage of you, Elder Wei." Speaking of this, even Chu Wuji, who rarely got angry, couldn't bear it. In the past, when they cultivated Chu Xiu, in addition to Wuxia's people, only the phaseless demon sect contributed part of the effort. The other people of the Immortal clan just watched from the sidelines. But Chu Xiu was killed, which was a slap in their faces. They were only willing to take action after Wuxia had calculated everything and paid a price to invite Yi Shaonan. Now that Wuxia's bloodline didn't have any inheritance, they still wanted to target Wuxia, which was a bit too much. Moreover, those people's reasons were very good. The Immortal clan didn't have so many resources to support so many successors. They didn't say anything when Chu Xiu was there. But now that Chu Xiu was gone, it was time to replace him. Wuxia seemed to be a little disheartened. He said slowly, "Forget it. Let them say what they want. Their mouths are on their bodies. They are all members of the Immortal clan. How can they fall out with old monster Situ? When cultivating Chu Xiu, I didn't ask them for any resources. Now if they rely on themselves to cultivate an excellent successor, after I die, those things will also belong to them. But this old man is still alive. If they want to spout nonsense again, then let them personally ask for it from me." Just when Chu Wuji wanted to say something, someone suddenly knocked on the door of the outer gate. A demonic warrior under Chu Wuji was holding a piece of news excitedly. He was so excited that he couldn't speak. Chu Wuji reprimanded, "Can't you be more arrogant? What made you so excited? Did the abbot of the Subodhi Zen monastery go mad during cultivation, or did the abbot of the great Guangming temple fall into the latrine?" While scolding his subordinates, Chu Wuji took the news and read it. The next moment, his hands couldn't help but tremble slightly. Wuxia sat up straight in surprise and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" There was a lot of information recorded on the paper, but at this time, Chu Wuji couldn't care so much. He just said 2 words excitedly, "Chu Xiu is not dead." Wuxia was taken aback. Then, he threw his head back and laughed out loud. His cloudy eyes shone with a sharp light. In the main hall of the Guanzhong torture room, Lu Fengxian sat at the head, while Xiao Yi and the other torture officers sat next to him. The head seat was the seat of the hall master. It used to be Guan Siyu, then Chu Xiu, who had helped Chu Yuanqing to this position, but now it was empty. At this time, Lu Fengxian was temporarily helping Chu Xiu to stabilize the Guanzhong torture room. In fact, he was doing what a hall master should do, but he had never taken this seat, not even once. Xiao Yi sighed and said, "Young Master Lu, the people around the torture hall have started to move again recently. It has always been said that one can be a thief for 1,000 days, but no one can guard against a thief for 1,000 days. It seems that we have to think of another way." During this period of time, Lu Fengxian had been helping to oversee the Guanzhong torture room and had gained the approval of Xiao Yi and the other upper echelons of the Guanzhong torture room. They had a better impression of Lu Fengxian than Chu Xiu. Lu Fengxian had a strong charisma, and if one had to sum it up, it would be nothing more than sincerity. He was very sincere to his friends, Lu Fengxian. It was the same when he came to the Guanzhong torture room to help. It was purely to help, and there were no benefits involved. It was this way that made people more convinced. Lu Fengxian frowned and said, "I was originally worried that the 3 countries would have designs on the Guanzhong torture room. I didn't expect it to be easy for the King of Hell, but difficult to deal with." Xiao Yi smiled bitterly and said, "After so many years, the 3 countries have actually recognized the situation. As long as they don't want another war, it's actually useful to keep the Guanzhong torture room. It can be used as a buffer. However, the Guanzhong torture room is in the middle of the 3 countries, and the profits from the smuggling trade are something that many people are jealous of." Previously, Hall Master Guan, as the successor of Lord Chu Kuanga, single-handedly established the order of the Guanzhong torture room. He can intimidate those small fries. As for Lord Chu Xiu, there's no need to talk about him. Who doesn't know his infamy? To put it bluntly, young Master Lu, please don't mind him. Although your reputation is not small, it can't be compared to Hall Master Guan and Official Chu. So even if you're here now, those people still dare to have designs on the Guanzhong torture room." Lu Fengxian frowned. However, at this moment, someone from the Guanzhong torture room rushed in without any regard for etiquette and shouted, "There's news from the underworld. Lord Chu Xiu is still alive, and he even killed Chunyang Dao sect's Chang Yunzi." Upon hearing this, the entire hall went silent. Everyone was in an uproar, but Lu Fengxian only let out a breath of relief and revealed a trace of a smile on her face. Xiao Yi calmed himself down and looked at the calm Lu Fengxian at the side. He said in astonishment, "Young Master Lu, aren't you surprised at all?" Lu Fengxian smiled and said, "Actually, I always had this intuition that Brother Chu is actually not dead. Now it seems that my intuition is quite accurate." Chapter 882. No one knew when it started, but Chu Xiu was surrounded by many interest groups. These people might not have a close relationship with each other, but Chu Xiu was undoubtedly the center of this interest group. This was the case for Wei Shiya's branch, the low-key Yinma branch, and Jianghu Hall, which Chu Xiu had spent the most effort on, were the same. In fact, among the forces under Chu Xiu, the most dangerous one was Jianghu Hall. Jianghu Hall was an existence that cooperated with the Northern Yan Imperial Court. As long as Chu Xiu was around, Jianghu Hall would listen to him and everyone would only respect Chu Xiu. As for the Northern Yan Imperial Court, what was that? But now that Chu Xiu was gone, the Northern Yan Imperial Court naturally wanted to swallow Jianghu Hall. Fortunately, Wei Shiya appeared at the critical moment and warned the Northern Yan Imperial Court, and the matter was dropped. At that time, Wei Shiya had just led the Yinma branch to wreak havoc in the south. Although Subodhi Monastery did not suffer any serious damage, it was still somewhat embarrassing. The Northern Yan Imperial Court did not want to provoke the Yinma branch when Wei Shiya was furious, so the matter was dropped for the time being. But as time passed, Wei Shiya's threat was not very effective. The Northern Yan Imperial Court was trying to swallow up and suppress Jianghu Hall. At this moment, Pang Hu was sitting opposite Mei Qinglian. With a face full of anger, he said, "That bastard Ren Qianli, his master has already been killed by Sir Chu, yet he still dares to be so arrogant here. He is simply courting death. Mei Qinglian rubbed her head and said, in the past, he naturally did not dare, but now that Chu Xiu is gone, and he is not an idiot. He dares to do this because he has the support of the entire Northern Yan imperial court. Mei Qinglian used to be a holy maiden. Even during the time in the Guanzhong torture room, she only influenced Guan Siyu and helped to deal with some small matters in the Guanzhong torture room. However, when it came to the big picture, Mei Qinglian was at a loss. Not choosing to rebuild the Yin Demon sect was the right choice. With her ability, even if she really rebuilt the Yin Demon sect, she would not understand it. At this moment, Tangya walked into the room with a smile on his face. "Gentlemen, I have some good news and some bad news for you. Which one do you want to hear first?" Pang Hu waved his hand in boredom. "You're still in the mood to play this game at a time like this? Let's talk about the bad ones first. Since the situation is already this bad, how bad can it get?" Tangya and Yen Bugui both stepped into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, which surprised the people of the Jianghu Hall. Although they knew that Chu Xiu valued the two of them, they didn't expect him to be so talented. Even Mei Qinglian had to admit that Chu Xiu was very good at reading people. The two of them had been following Chu Xiu since they were still assassins of the Blue Dragon Society. They didn't show their strength before, but they really made people look at them in a different light at the critical moment. Tangya smiled and said, "The bad news is that His Majesty has been oppressing the Jianghu Hall more and more recently. Daoist Wuyang sent me a message that His Majesty asked him to help erode the power of the Jianghu Hall. However, the old Daoist still has some skills. I don't know if he was scared by His Majesty before, or he saw Xiang Long's true nature. He agreed on the surface, but he was secretly perfunctory. He even told me the news." Pang Hu was not surprised in the slightest. Back when he was still one of the 36 great bandits of the northern lands, he had already had dealings with the northern Yan court. Although Xiang Long was a great ruler, he also had the common problem of being an emperor, which was that he was overly suspicious. Xiang Long couldn't tolerate any existence that he couldn't control. The current Jianghu Hall was one. "What's the good news?" Tangya smiled and said, "The good news is that His Majesty didn't die. Instead, he became the great dragon of the Blue Dragon Society. He just beheaded Zhang Yunzi and became famous again." With a rumble, the chair that Pang Hu sat on was directly smashed by the vital energy that he couldn't control. Even Mei Qinglian widened her beautiful eyes. Tangya smiled bitterly and said, "Calm down, both of you. This news has already spread to the entire Jianghu. Even His Majesty has sent us a message. He wants us to go to the Blue Dragon Society. I'm afraid the trouble has only just begun." Upon hearing this, Mei Qinglian and Pang Hu immediately prepared to go to the Blue Dragon Society. Only when Chu Xiu left did they know what Chu Xiu meant to this group. He was more like the backbone. Without Chu Xiu, all they could do was maintain everything that Chu Xiu left behind. Only when Chu Xiu was there could he express his views on the overall situation and formulate a series of follow-up plans. A few days later, Wei Shuya, Chu Wuji, and the others from the Yinma clan, Lu Fengxian and a few torture officers from the Guanzhong torture room, Mei Qinglian, Tangya, and the others from the Jianghu Hall all gathered in the Blue Dragon Society. Duanmu Qianshan was half a master and his seniority was high enough. Naturally, he was responsible for entertaining these people. After everyone had arrived, Duanmu Qianshan was amazed. Unknowingly, the power and influence that Chu Xiu held in his hands were already so amazing. Even if it wasn't considered the power of the Blue Dragon Society, it was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with those first-rate sections. Apart from those top sects that had heaven and earth mysterious realm masters, who else could gather such a level of power? Especially the people under Chu Xiu's command, there were simply too many talented experts to count. Lu Fengxian, Luo Feiheng, and the others were strong experts of the younger generation who were on the Longhu list. Tangya, Yen Bugui, and the others were not bad either. Even becoming a martial Dao grandmaster was not the end of their future. When Duanmu Qianshan handed the Blue Dragon Society to Chu Xiu, he was betting on Chu Xiu's future. At that time, although Duanmu Qianshan had placed all his bets on Chu Xiu, he was still a little apprehensive. But now, these people gave Duanmu Qianshan enough confidence. Moreover, Duanmu Qianshan was not afraid that Chu Xiu would annex the Blue Dragon Society. Just look at the forces under Chu Xiu now. Whether it was the Guanzhong torture room or the Jianghu hall, they all retained their own characteristics and power. The only thing they had in common was that they obeyed Chu Xiu's orders. Chu Xiu only wanted obedience. As for the name of the force, he didn't care. At this time, in the lobby of the Blue Dragon Society, everyone was surprised to see Chu Xiu again. They began to ask all sorts of questions. It was a mess. Chu Xiu had no choice but to let everyone calm down first. Then, he briefly told everyone what had happened during this period of time. After hearing it, everyone present was extremely surprised. Even if some of the people present didn't believe that Chu Xiu was dead, such as Lu Fengxian, they didn't expect that even though Chu Xiu had temporarily disappeared from the eyes of the pugilistic world, he had caused such a huge incident. Some people were born unstable, and Chu Xiu was such a person. After exchanging some pleasantries, Chu Xiu said, "Everyone, I didn't gather everyone here just to catch up. I have something to tell you. I'm in big trouble." Mei Qinglian said in surprise, "Didn't you just appear? What did you do again?" Chu Xiu pointed at himself and said, "My appearance itself represents big trouble. Previously, the Bodhi Zen monastery wanted to kill me. In the end, Jingchan Jizang died, but I'm still alive. How can the Bodhi Zen monastery let it go? There's also the heavenly sect. That lunatic Kuang Xieyue is the same. No one knows if the people from the heavenly sect will appear in the pugilistic world again. If they are, the heavenly sect will probably cause trouble for me. Besides, I killed Chang Yunzi previously. He was the leader of the 6 temple protectors. He died in my hands. If the Chunyang Dao sect can swallow such an insult, the Chunyang Dao sect would not be the Chunyang Dao sect. There are too many people in the pugilistic world who have grudges with me. I'm not afraid if they come at me alone. I'm afraid that they will join forces and attack me." Mei Qinglian said in a deep voice, "What do you plan to do now?" Some of the people in the hall were Chu Xiu's subordinates, some were his elders, and some were his good friends. In any case, regardless of their identities, they had a close relationship with Chu Xiu. It was about right to say that they were bound together for good or ill. Therefore, Chu Xiu's trouble was their trouble. If they survived this time, Chu Xiu's benefits would also be theirs. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "There's no other way other than to face it head-on. If someone wants to kill you, you can't just stick your head out and wait for them to kill you. We can also use this opportunity to show the pugilistic world our strength. We've used too many schemes. At the critical moment, it still depends on strength." Most people in the pugilistic world had the impression that Chu Xiu was ruthless and scheming. He had all sorts of evil means. However, in fact, if he had enough strength, Chu Xiu wouldn't want to use such means to kill. A simple slap to death was the most effortless. It was also the most direct way to display one's strength. For so many years, the moon-worshipping cult had been there. Why didn't anyone come to eliminate the evil and defend the righteousness? Why did they let the moon-worshipping cult develop to such an extent? Because it was impossible to destroy the moon-worshipping cult with the strength of one sect. The loss of joining hands was too great. No one wanted to do so. It was the same in the last war between the righteous and the evil. Not everyone was willing to risk their lives for things that had nothing to do with their own interests. This matter was a problem for Chu Xiu, but at the same time, it was also an opportunity. An opportunity to let the entire pugilistic world see his strength clearly. At that time, if anyone wanted to touch Chu Xiu again, they would have to consider whether it was worth it to do so under the premise that there was no absolute benefit or enmity. Chu Xiu first asked Wei Shuya, Elder Wei, if I really want to fight with the Sabodhi monastery and other righteous sects, how many people from the Yinma clan will take action? Hearing Chu Xiu's question, Wei Shuya was silent for a moment. Then he sighed and said, when you were alive, I thought I could unite the whole Yinma clan with my prestige. However, after your accident, I found out that the Yinma clan had been completely destroyed. I'm just a paperhanger, but I can't paste this leaky house. Chapter 883. After the incident with Chu Xiu, Wei Shuya's heart was really cold. Originally, he thought that even if the Hidden Devil clan was a group of loose sand, it could still be considered an alliance, right? In the end, he found out later that the entire Hidden Devil clan couldn't even be considered an alliance. Even if it was an alliance, if the publicly recognized face of the alliance was killed, then they would have to take revenge with great fanfare and regain their face. In the end, Wei Shuya came forward and took out his own treasure in exchange for Yi Xiaonan's help. Only then did the Hidden Devil clan regain some face. Moreover, that group of people thought that Wei Shuya's clan didn't have a successor, yet they still dared to come after him. This was not just disappointing, it was simply blinded by greed. Chu Xiu was not surprised by this because he had already seen through the nature of the Hidden Devil clan. However, because of Wei Shuya's painstaking efforts, he couldn't say much. Now that Wei Shuya himself had recognized it, Chu Xiu had no more scruples. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, Elder Wei, everyone has their own ambitions. The Kunlun Devil cult has been gone for 500 years. For them, whether it's the Kunlun Devil cult or the Hidden Devil clan, it's more of a symbol. If they don't want to help, it's useless for you to force them. How many people in the Hidden Devil clan are willing to help us? Wei Shuya shook his head and said, not many. The Phaseless Demon sect is one of them, and there are also 2 of my old friends. The rest are like the Scarlet Drill Demon sect. Most of the time, they are neutral. Qin Chaoxian is someone, but his vision is limited to the Scarlet Drill Demon sect. The rest like Umoya and Wuma Xian, who you met last time, can only say that they treat the Hidden Devil clan as a temporary stronghold. Although they won't cheat you, their minds aren't on you. As for the others, they don't need to think about helping you. It's already good enough that they don't hit you when you're down. As soon as he said this, everyone present was silent. Some of the people present, like Duanmu Qianshan or Lu Fengxian, actually did not know much about the Hidden Devil clan. They only knew that Chu Xiu was the successor of the Hidden Devil bloodline, so his identity should be extraordinary. But who would have thought that the Hidden Devil bloodline was already in such a rotten state? It was really not easy for Chu Xiu to be the successor. Wei Shuya sighed and said, since we all have to exchange benefits, I might as well give it to the moon-worshipping cult. At least they will put in more effort. But now things are a bit troublesome. Yi Xiaonan is currently in seclusion, and it is said that it is a very important seclusion. In these few months, all the affairs of moon-worshipping cult will be handled by Eastern Emperor Tai and the High Priest of moon-worshipping cult. If we go to moon-worshipping cult now, I'm afraid we won't be able to see Yi Xiaonan. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, moon-worshipping cult is always an outsider. We are a bright devil and a hidden devil. Although we can join forces, it is not wise to pin all our hopes on each other. Wei Shuya frowned and said, but divine monk Rama is always a hidden danger. There is no heaven and earth mysterious realm expert in the Hidden Devil bloodline. Once divine monk Rama takes action, who can stop him? For so many years, although the Hidden Devil bloodline was a mass of loose sand, the power gathered by this mass of loose sand was still amazing. There was no lack of true fire spirit refinement realm and real pellet realm. There were dozens of branches. Even if it was an unlucky sect like the Shadow Demon sect, which only had Mei Qinglian left, it also had a foundation of martial arts. But why did the hidden devil bloodline never stand out as high-profile as moon-worshipping cult for so many years? Not being united was one reason, but the most important reason was actually that the hidden devil bloodline did not have a heaven and earth mysterious realm expert in the past hundreds of years. Although the existence of the heaven and earth mysterious realm rarely stepped out of the pugilistic world, and most of them only existed in legends, the Supreme was the Supreme. He could suppress the world with his own strength, and no one dared to provoke him. There was no such person in the hidden devil bloodline. Once they united together, they would be a live target, and it was easy to be destroyed. Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "I will think of a way to deal with this matter. I can't find someone who can match Divine Monk Rama, but it is still possible to find someone who can temporarily block Divine Monk Rama." Wei Shuya looked at Chu Xiu in surprise, but he did not ask much. Next, Chu Xiu directly discussed the strategy with everyone present in detail, formulating how to deploy the forces on his side and how to deal with the people of Subodhi Zen Monastery when they really attacked. Previously, Chu Xiu was in the dark. The enemy was in the light while he was in the dark. He was the active party. Now that Chu Xiu appeared in front of everyone, he became an extremely obvious target. They could only deal with the situation according to the situation. Sometimes, being weak in strength was so helpless. Before the war started, they had already lost the initiative. The first thing that Chu Xiu paid attention to was the Jianghu Hall. After all, it was the strongest force under his command, and it was also the one that he paid the most attention to. Fortunately, the Jianghu Hall originally had Mei Qinglian and Pang Hu, plus Wei Shuya, so during the period when Chu Xiu was not around, although the Jianghu Hall had some troubles, they were not serious. On the contrary, their strength had increased. Mei Qinglian explained all these to Chu Xiu in detail. At this time, she suddenly revealed a playful smile and said, "That little girl from the Blue Dragon Society likes you." Chu Xiu was stunned. He shook his head and said, "Why are you talking about this? What nonsense are you talking about? You've only met her for the first time." Mei Qinglian stretched out her finger and shook it gently. "A woman's intuition. Didn't you notice that the little girl has been staring at me? I can feel her hostility from far away. It's as if I stole her man." Mei Qinglian shook her head. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "It's normal for her to be hostile to you. Most women will be hostile to you." Mei Qinglian, who had practiced the chick technique, was very attractive to men. If the attraction of the flower ghost granny was superficial carnal desire, then Mei Qinglian's charm was immersed in her bones. This feeling was attractive to men, but for women, of course, it didn't feel good. After all, the same sex repels each other. Mei Qinglian snorted and said, "That little girl, Luo Feiheng, has a good relationship with her." Chu Xiu looked a little strange. Luo Feiheng? She can't even be considered a woman. Chu Xiu knew that this woman, Luo Feiheng, dared to go to the brothel to ask for girls. She also secretly flirted with Mu Zi under his nose. Therefore, Chu Xiu suspected that she had a psychological shadow because of the Luo family's forced marriage, so she had completely changed her sexual orientation. Forget it. Let's not talk about these useless things. After returning to the Jianghu Hall, immediately withdraw all the forces and be ready to take action. Don't care about Xianglong. Anyway, they have already fallen out. As long as we don't rebel for the time being, His Majesty can't say anything. Mei Qinglian nodded and retreated. At this time, seeing Mei Qinglian leave, Mu Zi, who had been secretly observing Chu Xiu and Mei Qinglian, was relieved. She didn't know why, but when she saw the incomparably beautiful Mei Qinglian, she subconsciously felt a sense of hostility. She had a feeling that she wanted to completely push Mei Qinglian away from Chu Xiu. At this time, Luo Feiheng came to Mu Zi's side again. Mu Zi suddenly asked, "Sister Luo, has this Madame Mei of the Jianghu Hall been with young Master Chu for a long time?" Luo Feiheng was a little curious as to why Mu Zi was concerned about this, but she still subconsciously said, "It seems like it has been a long time." Mei Qinglian used to be Guan Siyu's wife. Of course, that was only her identity on the surface. After Guan Siyu died, she followed that guy, Chu Xiu. In fact, in the dark, Mei Qinglian is the saintess of the Yin Demon sect. She has a good relationship with Wei Shuya and Elder Wei. She also has a high status in the Yin Demon sect. Hearing Luo Feiheng's words, Mu Zi was still a little worried. However, on second thought, although Mei Qinglian was the saintess of the Yin Demon sect, she could also represent the Blue Dragon Society. This also made Mu Zi feel a lot more balanced. Of course, the most important thing was that she was younger than Mei Qinglian. Of course, if Luo Feiheng knew what she was thinking, she would definitely be laughed at by Luo Feiheng for being too naive. Some men liked young women, but there were also some men who liked mature women. At this moment, after Chu Xiu finished his discussion with Mei Qinglian, he went to talk to Wei Shuya about asking the Phaseless Demon sect to help. Although the Phaseless Demon sect had always stood on the side of the Kunlun Devil cult, this didn't mean that Chu Xiu could command the Phaseless Demon sect as a successor. As a leader, there must be rewards and punishments. Right now, Chu Xiu hadn't led the Yin Demon sect yet. Therefore, if he wanted the Phaseless Demon sect to help him willingly, he had to show some sincerity. Chu Xiu's sincerity was to secretly help the Phaseless Demon sect build some strongholds in the northern Yen territory. The Phaseless Demon sect was deeply rooted in the Yin Demon sect. In addition, they had been jumping out to cause trouble all year round. Most of them were hidden, and their sphere of influence was concentrated in the vast eastern Qi. Chu Xiu was the local snake in the northern Yen territory. If the martial suppression hall opened the door for the Phaseless Demon sect, their degree of hiding would be even better than in the eastern Qi territory. After the discussion, Wei Shuya asked, "You said that you were confident in dealing with Divine Monk Rama. What are you going to do? He is a supreme expert in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. You must not underestimate him." Chu Xiu said, "Of course, I won't underestimate an expert of this level. Elder Wei, do you remember what I said before? In the space of the Green Capital, there is someone who has cultivated to the heaven and earth mysterious realm. In that place, it is almost impossible to use Qi, let alone the power of heaven and earth. Even the existence of the heaven and earth mysterious realm can only train their bodies. Do you think that if I bring people out of that place, can they stop Rama?" This wasn't a whim in Chu Xiu's head. When he found out that he could use the heavenly key in his body to pass through the Green Capital space at any time, he had this idea. That old man Shang Tianliang was a genuine expert in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. Wouldn't it be a pity not to make use of him? Chapter 884. When Wei Shuya heard Chu Xiu's plan, he frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Although there is no problem with your plan, I still have to say one more thing. The hardest thing to control in this world is people. You can use them, and they can use you. In short, you have to be careful of anything that is beyond your control." What had Wei Shuya not seen in his lifetime? He was also worried that Chu Xiu would be at a disadvantage in this kind of thing. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Don't worry, old man Wei. I know what I'm doing. If I don't have absolute confidence, I won't take the risk." After hearing Chu Xiu's words, Wei Shuya did not say anything else. Chu Xiu was not an ordinary junior. His achievements even put some of the big shots of the devil path to shame. Wei Shuya was old, and he did things too steadily and not decisive enough. Therefore, he hardly interfered in these matters. He would only remind Chu Xiu when it was necessary to prevent Chu Xiu from going overboard. After arranging everything here, Chu Xiu immediately went to the place where the space was weak and entered the Green Capital. He did not know when the Sabodi Zen Monastery or the Chunyang Dao sect would make a move, and whether they would join forces. In any case, he had to prepare everything as soon as possible. He could not waste a single moment. When he stepped into the world full of yellow sand again, Chu Xiu felt extremely uncomfortable. Although the Jianghu in the outside world was also filled with killing and seemed extremely cruel, it was still better than this land of death. In this area full of yellow sand, Chu Xiu had no sense of direction, even though it was his second time entering. However, Chu Xiu had left a mark here before. Although it had been a while, the aura of the mark could still be detected. Following the aura of the mark, Chu Xiu headed in the direction of the mall. At this time, within the merchant city, most of the people were digging and building underground secret rooms. The deepest one was even several 100 feet deep, which was used to prevent the black storm. Don't be fooled by the fact that the merchant city was made of stacked stones. It looked extremely sturdy, but under the black storm, it wouldn't even be able to hold on for a day and would be directly razed to the ground. Only a few dozen feet underground could they resist the powerful power of the black storm. Then, after the black storm was over, they could go back and rebuild the merchant city. This was a foolproof method that the people of Green Capital had used the lives of several generations to exchange for. Of course, the prerequisite was that one had to have enough energy to withstand the black storm. In such a harsh environment hundreds of feet underground, one's energy consumption was dozens of times higher than above ground. Usually, after a black storm, many people would suffocate to death underground. But this time, there was a rare smile on the faces of the people in the mall. Thanks to Chu Xiu's blood recovery pills, the people in the shopping center were confident that they could survive the black storm. Although the people in Emerald City were already numb to death, no one was willing to die if they could live. Shang Qi and Shang Tianliang stood on the city gate. Shang Tianliang sighed and said, "It's been a long time since I've seen such a scene. Qi, Grandpa is old, and the time I can protect the merchant city is limited. I'll leave the merchant city to you. This was originally your father's responsibility, but now it's going to be on your shoulders." Shang Tianliang's age was actually not that old. He had just passed 100 years. In the outside world, people like the old Celestial Master had lived for more than 500 years and were still healthy. But in Emerald City, everyone's lifespan was greatly reduced. The martial artists here were unable to condense a large amount of true qi to cleanse their bodies. On the contrary, they had to greatly overdraft their physical strength. Therefore, martial artists of the same realm had a much shorter lifespan than in the outside world. With Shang Tianliang's current state, let alone 500 years, it would already not be easy for him to live to 200 years old. Shang Qi's eyes also revealed a touch of sadness. If her father had not died, he would have been able to help her grandfather support the merchant city. At that moment, Shang Qi suddenly said, "It's all that man's fault for not keeping his word. Grandpa, you helped him kill those people, but he took those pills and left. If he had given us all those pills, let alone this black storm, we would have been able to withstand the next one." At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out. "Little girl, don't speak ill of people behind their backs. I, Chu Xiu, am famous for keeping my word. Since I've promised you something, I won't go back on my word. It's just a matter of giving it to you sooner or later." Shang Tianliang and Shang Qi turned their heads abruptly. Standing at the entrance of the merchant city was Chu Xiu. The moment he saw Chu Xiu, even Shang Tianliang could not remain calm. "You can still enter Emerald City? Does this mean that you have a secret treasure that allows you to go back to Emerald City at any time, or perhaps a transmission array?" For people like Shang Tianliang who were born in Emerald City, their biggest dream was to leave this damned place. Before, Shang Tianliang had guessed that outsiders like Chu Xiu should have a one-time use treasure that could temporarily break through space, but now that Chu Xiu had appeared here, his previous guess was overturned and he was given hope. Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't get too excited, City Lord Shang. I came here this time to fulfill my promise and give you the other half of the pills. Also, I want to make a deal with City Lord Shang. It's not appropriate to discuss it here, how about we go inside?" Shang Tianliang suppressed his slightly excited mood and gestured to Chu Xiu, leading him into the city lord's mansion. Chu Xiu poured out the other half of the blood-restoring pills and said solemnly, "City Lord Shang should have guessed that I am different from others. Others can only enter this place by relying on an artifact that can temporarily break through space, but I can enter this space repeatedly and even take people out with me." Although Shang Tianliang had already guessed this before, when he heard Chu Xiu say this at this time, monstrous waves rose in his and Shang-Chi's hearts. This kind of thing was normal for others, but for these people in Emerald City, it was related to their future and the hopes of their ancestors for dozens of generations. However, after his excitement, Shang Tianliang also calmed down and said in a deep voice, "Take us out, what are your conditions?" Shang Tianliang had lived in this cruel environment for over 100 years, fighting against the heavens and others, so he definitely had a lot of ideas. If they were useless, Chu Xiu would never have appeared here again and said he would keep his word. Now that Chu Xiu had returned, it proved that they were actually useful, and Chu Xiu needed them. Chu Xiu knocked on the stone table in front of him and said, "I have enemies in the outside world, a lot of enemies, and there are countless people who want to kill me." Shang Tianliang nodded and said, "I can see that." Although he hadn't been in contact with Chu Xiu for a long time, he was able to notice that Chu Xiu was a ruthless and cunning person. Such a person would surely be an ambitious and ruthless devil in the outside world. In short, he wasn't a good person. It would be strange if such a person did not have many enemies. "You saw the old Daoist I killed last time. The forces behind him are very powerful, and the forces behind my other enemies are also very powerful. There are even existences in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. I can't fight them head-on, so I want to take you out, City Lord Shang, to help me block them." Shang Tianliang's eyes narrowed, and he was about to state his conditions, but he was interrupted by Chu Xiu. "City Lord Shang, there is something I need to say in advance. Although I am here to trade with you, in fact, I have a choice, but you have no choice. If you don't agree with me, you will never be able to get out. I only need you now, City Lord Shang. I don't need anyone else, so I will only take you out. But don't worry, I have brought more elixirs and other resources. Not only can the people in the city survive this black storm, but they also won't have to worry about it in the future." Shang Tianliang narrowed his eyes, and there was a hint of fierceness in his eyes. "You are threatening me with the lives of the people in the city." Chu Xiu nodded and admitted it openly, "Yes, this is a threat. City Lord Shang, you are already in the heaven and earth mysterious realm. You should know how terrifying this realm is. Your current realm is even the same as your old ancestor 10,000 years ago. But because you are in the green capital, there is no way for you to exert the power of your realm. If I bring all of you out, what if you rebel against me in the future? How can I deal with a heaven and earth mysterious realm existence? I have always been a person who has a good eye for people. City Lord Shang, although you seem to be strict, you care about everyone in the city. Only when these people are still in the green capital, can I feel at ease using you." Shang Tianliang still wanted to say something, but Chu Xiu beat him to it. "I know what you want to say, City Lord Shang, it is nothing more than saying that you will definitely keep your word. But sorry, I don't believe you. I will not put my life on the other party's honesty. I can only be at ease if I have something in my hands. But City Lord Shang, you don't have to worry. When I reach the heaven and earth mysterious realm in the future, I will bring everyone in the city out. As long as City Lord Shang helps me block this disaster, I will also bring a portion of the people in the city out. The choice now lies in City Lord Shang's hands. Do you agree or refuse? City Lord Shang, you'd better not choose to use force. You have seen my strength, you can't kill me. Moreover, even if you kill me, you won't be able to find a way to cross this space." After Chu Xiu finished speaking, Shang Tianliang's eyes were gloomy as he pondered. Lu Jianghu, who was in the blood soul bead, curled his lips. He knew that Chu Xiu was like this. He would not easily trust others. Otherwise, he, Lu Jianghe, would not continue to be tied up here. Now Shang Tianliang was the same. Chu Xiu gave him restrictions and hope, but he did not even give him a chance to fall out. Just as Chu Xiu had said, he was the one with the initiative now. He had a choice, but Shang Tianliang had no choice. Chapter 885. Chu Xiu had always been a good judge of character. Shang Tianliang wasn't a good person. In fact, in a place like Green Capital, there wasn't a single good person. Even a little girl like Shang Qi had blood on her hands. But it was undeniable that Shang Tianliang was a good city lord. In terms of individual strength, Shang Tianliang should be the strongest in Green Capital. If it wasn't for Merchant City dragging him down, he wouldn't have to take care of so many people, and he wouldn't be in such a miserable state. However, he still remained as the city lord, not for the sake of power, but to protect the people in the city. Even the blood recovery pills that Chu Xiu had given them previously were distributed equally by Shang Tianliang to the people in the city. With a long sigh, Shang Tianliang said, "Boy, you're right. I have no choice. I promise you, but I hope you won't lie to me. Otherwise, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you go." Chu Xiu said lightly, "Don't worry, city lord. You've seen my credibility. As long as it's something that I, Chu Xiu, promised, I will give it to you. I will never go back on my word. This time, I also brought some gifts for City Lord Shang. I believe they will be very useful for the City Lord." With that said, Chu Xiu handed a space box to Shang Tianliang. After opening it, it turned out to be a variety of low-level elixirs, a large amount of food, some metal materials, and ordinary weapons. These things weren't worth much in the outside world, at least for Chu Xiu's family business. But in Green Capital, they were priceless treasures. There was no need to mention the elixirs and food. The metal materials could strengthen their underground secret area to prevent it from collapsing in the black storm. The weapons could also increase the city's current strength. There might be some iron mines in Green Capital, but at this time, who would have the mood to mine? Saving some energy to find food was the key. Shang Tianliang carefully received these things and immediately found a few of his confidants to discuss where these things should be used. At this time, Chu Xiu asked, "City Lord Shang, how strong are the other forces like Green Capital? How many existences are there at the same level as you?" Shang Qi glanced at Chu Xiu and said, "You want to take advantage of them? I'd advise you to save it. Those people aren't like I. You can easily get hold of them. In Green City, there should be 2 or 3 people who have reached the realm of I. However, I don't know if they're dead or not. The people of Green City don't interact with each other for years, so it's normal for them to die. As for the factions, I'm not too sure. Every day, there are factions being broken up and reorganized. Sects and aristocratic families don't exist in Green Capital. My merchant city can be said to be the largest faction in the Green Capital so far, but it should be the faction that has existed for the longest time. It has been passed down to me for 3 generations." Chu Xiu nodded thoughtfully. In fact, he was just asking. He didn't think of pulling others over. One Shang Tianliang was enough. If he pulled too many people over, it would be hard to control. The strength of Green Capital was similar to what Chu Xiu had guessed. These people were all ancient people. The inheritance in their hands was absolutely complete. Even in this harsh environment, it was normal for a few heaven and earth profound realm experts to appear. After all, people's potential was unlimited. However, in this place, the sects and aristocratic families that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years would not exist. Merchant City could be said to be the most special faction in Green Capital. Only Merchant City preserved the shadow of sects and aristocratic families. For the other people in Green Capital, they just wanted to live. Today, their faction was destroyed. Tomorrow, they would go and rely on others. But for the people of Merchant City, they first knew that they were people of Merchant City. Their sense of belonging to Merchant City was far greater than that of other people in Green Capital. Because of this, Chu Xiu could use the entire Merchant City to threaten Shang Tianliang. Otherwise, if it was someone else who had the chance to go out, why would they care about this? City Lord Shang, we shouldn't delay. It's best that we leave now. I don't know when my enemies will make their move. Shang Tianliang hesitated for a moment and said, "Can we leave with Qi, When she was young, I used to take an ancient book and tell her the story of the outside world over and over again. But until now, she hasn't had the chance to see the outside world and what it looks like." Chu Xiu paused for a moment and said, "No problem." The entire Merchant City was still in Green Capital. As long as Shang Tianliang was still thinking about Merchant City, Chu Xiu would not be afraid of any trouble. After seeing Chu Xiu agree, Shang-Chi's eyes also slightly lit up. No matter how mature and experienced she appeared, she was actually just a little girl in her 20s. After Shang Tianliang gave some orders to some of his confidants in Merchant City, he directly followed Chu Xiu and left. Bringing the two of them, Chu Xiu's mind moved, and the sky-piercing key directly flashed a glimmer of light, bringing the two of them away from this place. It was the first time they stood in the outside world without yellow sand, and the first time they saw the real blue sky and white clouds. Even though they appeared in a barren mountain with no people, this scenery still intoxicated Shang Tianliang and Shang-Chi. Shang Tianliang let out a long breath and said, "Even in my dreams, I never thought that I would actually leave that hell one day." Shang Tianliang was still considered calm, but Shang-Chi had already fallen into a daze ever since she saw the scenery outside. As someone who was born in a place full of yellow sand, Shang Tianliang might have already gotten used to it. However, Shang-Chi was still young and still had some longing. It was just that she did not expect that her longing would actually become a reality one day. Chu Xiu looked at the two of them and said, "Let's go, the two of you. This is just an ordinary barren mountain. The real scenery is behind." With that, Chu Xiu brought the two of them all the way to the Blue Dragon Society. Any scenery in the outside world was extremely fresh to Shang Tianliang and Shang-Chi. When they passed by the big cities in eastern Qi, it was an eye-opener for Shang-Chi. However, she was still rather restrained and did not request to take a look around. When they arrived at the edge of the 100,000 mountains where the Blue Dragon Society was located, the majestic mountains and dense forests still amazed the two of them. In the Blue Dragon Society, when everyone saw that Chu Xiu had gone out for a few days and brought back two fellows who looked like beggars, they all felt a little strange. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "This is the helper I invited to resist Rama, Shang Tianliang, and that is his granddaughter. Senior Duanmu, can I trouble you to bring them to wash up first? As long as you can satisfy these two's requests, try your best to satisfy them." Duanmu Qianshan nodded, but at this moment, he was also sizing up Shang Tianliang in astonishment. Chu Xiu said that this person could resist divine monk Rama, but no matter how he looked at him, Shang Tianliang did not seem to be in existence in the heaven and earth mystic realm. When Duanmu Qianshan was sizing up Shang Tianliang also glanced at Duanmu Qianshan. It was this glance that made Duanmu Qianshan feel a slight stab of pain. In the cruel environment of Green Capital, Shang Tianliang had led the entire merchant city through countless battles before he was able to protect his small gathering place. In addition, in the environment of Green Capital where people's lives were not taken seriously, Shang Tianliang's ruthless killing intent was even stronger than that of an old assassin like Duanmu Qianshan. Duanmu Qianshan's heart trembled slightly, and he immediately brought the two of them to wash up and change their clothes. During this period of time, Shang Tianliang was also sizing up the surroundings without saying a word. For a person with a personality like Chu Xiu, he said that he had countless enemies in the outside world, but at the same time, the number of people under his command was definitely innumerable. The Blue Dragon Society before him had already given Shang Tianliang a huge shock. The residents of Merchant City were actually all soldiers. Everyone, regardless of whether they had inheritances or not, did not have any sectarian bias. All martial arts were open to everyone, and everyone could practice them. However, the people of Merchant City only practiced martial arts for the sake of survival. As for the people of Blue Dragon Society, Shang Tianliang could clearly feel their killing intent, as well as their imposing manner. They practiced martial arts for the sake of killing. With such a group of well-trained killing machines, although Shang Tianliang was not clear about the status of Chu Xiu in the outside world, he was sure that they were not weak. After Duanmu Qianshan brought the two of them to wash up, Shang Tianliang and Shang Qi did not have any other requests. They only had one request, and that was to eat. In Merchant City, as the city lord and the only grandson of the city lord, they naturally would not starve to death. However, Chu Xiu had also eaten the pastries made from the Misty Poo tree. It tasted like wax and was simply eating dirt. The desire for good food was something that most warriors did not care about. However, for Shang Tianliang and Shang Qi, it was an existence that could only be imagined in some ancient books. Therefore, under Duanmu Qianshan's strange expression, the two of them ate over 100 dishes in an hour. They looked like the reincarnation of hungry ghosts. A chicken entered Shang Tianliang's stomach in a few bites. Although Shang Qi was a woman, she was not much better off than Shang Tian. Although the pure energy brought by these ordinary ingredients was not as much as a blood recovery pill, the feeling of fullness was something that elixirs could not compare to. Mu Zi, who was standing beside Chu Xiu, was dumbfounded. She said, "Young Master Chu, are you sure that this old man can defeat Luo Mo? I feel that apart from eating a lot, there is nothing special about him." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "I do not need him to defeat Luo Mo. In the entire pugilistic world, how many people can say that they can defeat Luo Mo for sure? I am afraid that even Yi Shaonan would not dare to say that. I only need him to block Luo Mo. That is enough. As for the special part, if he eats a lot, then he is special." With that, Chu Xiu left immediately. Mu Zi asked Duanmu Qianshan in astonishment, "Godfather, what does young Master Chu mean? Why is eating a lot special?" Duanmu Qianshan looked at Shang Tianliang, who was still stuffing himself with food. A thoughtful look appeared in his eyes as he said, "Of course it is special. If it were other warriors, how would they digest so much food? They would have stuffed themselves to death. However, look at this person. Isn't he special enough?" Chapter 886. Just before Chu Xiu went to find Shang Tianliang, the undercurrent in Jianghu had already begun to surge. The vast Sun Peak in Hedong Prefecture of Eastern Qi was where the mountain gate of the Chunyang Dao sect was located. It was exceptionally magnificent. For thousands of years, the so-called vast Sun Peak was actually just an ordinary hill. Until the ancestors of the Chunyang Dao sect established the Chunyang Dao sect in this place. Step by step, they reinforced the mountain peak, carved a formation, and built a large number of Taoist temples, pavilions, and other buildings in it. The entire vast Sun Peak appeared to be dazzling with golden light. It was extremely eye-catching even if it was more than 10 miles away. It was equivalent to the landmark of the entire Hedong Prefecture. At this time, the atmosphere in the Chunyang Dao sect was depressing. Chang Yunzi's corpse was placed in the entire hall. His chest was even pierced by Chu Xiu with the sky-seeking tyrant spear. The corpse was sent by the people of the real martial arts sect. The people of the real martial arts sect could imagine how excited the people of the Chunyang Dao sect would be when they saw the corpse. Therefore, he directly turned around and left after throwing the corpse. Chu Xiu. The Chunyang Dao sect and you are absolutely irreconcilable. A white-haired old Taoist roared in a low voice as if he wanted to skin Chu Xiu alive. The old Taoist's words seemed to have opened a floodgate. In the hall, the group of old Taoists and middle-aged Taoists of the Chunyang Dao sect began to scold Chu Xiu. They looked like they wanted to hack Chu Xiu into pieces. At this time, standing in front of Chang Yunzi's corpse was an old Taoist with messy hair and a gray Taoist robe. He was the current leader of the Chunyang Dao sect, Immortal Shou Yang, Ling Yunzi. The sect leader of the Chunyang Dao sect could be said to be extremely low-key. He was the most low-key one among the three great Dao sects. However, it was said that Ling Yunzi was extremely sharp when he was young. He was the number one on the Longhu leaderboard of his generation. He had a fiery temper and abhorred evil. Under the pure Yang sword, all evil spirits would retreat. He had even annihilated a major demonic sect by himself. He had set up the Nine Heavens pure Yang formation with his sword, causing the entire demonic sect to be annihilated. From then on, Ling Yunzi became famous in the pugilistic world. It was also because of this battle that Ling Yunzi inherited the position of the leader of the Chunyang Dao sect. However, for some unknown reason, ever since Ling Yunzi took over the position of Chunyang Dao sect master, he became more and more low-key. Even in the entire Chunyang Dao sect, very few disciples could see him. As a result, this person, who was once ranked in the top 5 on the leaderboard when he was at his peak, had not appeared on any leaderboard for decades. At this moment, looking at Zhang Yunzi's corpse, who had died with his eyes open, Ling Yunzi gently stroked his face with his hand, closed his eyes, and let out a long sigh. This sigh immediately made everyone in the hall quiet down and turn their eyes to Ling Yunzi. Do you all think that the Chunyang Dao sect should take revenge? The Taoist priests present nodded in unison. Someone even said loudly, "Sect leader, senior brother Zhang Yunzi was killed by Chu Xiu in front of everyone. If the Chunyang Dao sect doesn't take revenge for such a huge grudge, how can the Chunyang Dao sect have the face to stand in the pugilistic world?" Ling Yunzi suddenly raised his head and said, "Does the Chunyang Dao sect only rely on face to stand in the pugilistic world?" The old Taoist priest who spoke suddenly paused, but then he snorted coldly and said, "Face is for others to see, but the Chunyang Dao sect can't just let it go. With senior brother Zhang Yunzi's strength, even if he can't defeat Chu Xiu, he can still escape." But why didn't he escape? Because he is the leader of the 6 Temple Guardian spiritual masters. If he escapes, the entire Chunyang Dao sect will lose face. Moreover, if a murderer like Chu Xiu appears in the pugilistic world again, it will be a catastrophe for the entire pugilistic world. Senior brother Zhang Yunzi wants to use his life to drag the devil down with him. But now, senior brother Zhang Yunzi is dead, but the devil is still alive. If the Chunyang Dao sect swallows this insult, I'm afraid I won't even dare to die because I have no face to see senior brother Zhang Yunzi. The old Taoist priest's words were the thoughts of almost all the Taoists present. As soon as he said this, the others also agreed. Apart from Ling Yunzi, the only person who could still remain calm was the junior uncle of the Chunyang Dao sect, Shi Yunzi. Ling Yunzi waved his hand and said with slight exhaustion, "If that's the case, then do it." However, the Chunyang Dao sect can't be the only one to do it. Chu Xiu is not alone. The Jianghu Hall, the Blue Dragon Society, the Guanzhong Torture Room, and the entire Yinma clan are standing behind him. If we want to kill the devil, we can't be unprepared. Later, I will ask Shi Yunzi to go to Sabodhi Zen Temple. I believe it won't be peaceful there. Alright, all of you can leave first and prepare for senior brother Zhang Yunzi's burial. Junior brother Shi Yunzi, you stay. If it was during normal times, the people of the Dao sects would definitely not ask the Buddhist sects for help. They would definitely oppose Ling Yunzi's approach. However, the people of the Chunyang Dao sect were just a little paranoid, but they were not idiots. It was indeed a little difficult for them to deal with Chu Xiu alone. Therefore, at this time, they could only temporarily put aside their sectarian views and join forces with the monks of Nanman to annihilate Chu Xiu together. After everyone left, Ling Yunzi let out a long sigh and said in a low voice, "Junior brother, do you think I'm very useless? Master named me Ling Yunzi because he hoped that I would have the ambition to reach the clouds in the future and soar to the sky. Later, he gave me the Taoist name Shou Yang because he wanted me to guard the Chunyang Dao sect well. In the end, when it came to me, the Chunyang Dao sect was at its weakest in the past thousands of years. In the past, the Chunyang Dao sect was the leader of the Dao sects when it was at its peak. At that time, the real martial arts sect was just a weak branch of the Dao sects. There were only a dozen little Taoists with the surname Zhang in the Longhu Mountain Celestial Master Mansion. They were preaching in the wilderness of West Chu. Now, because of Ning Xuanji, the real martial arts sect became the leader of the Dao sects. Even if Ning Xuanji had disappeared for 500 years, there were still people who remembered the identity of the real martial arts sect. At least, with Ning Xuanji's halo, it would not be a problem for the real martial arts sect to survive for another 500 years. As for the Celestial Master Mansion, with the old Celestial Master in charge, the rest of the middle-aged and young people, and the latest generation of powerhouses, it had long become the #1 Dao sects. He had been guarding the Chunyang Dao sect for his whole life, but he had left the Chunyang Dao sect in such a state. This made Ling Yunzi feel ashamed to face his ancestors. At that moment, Shi Yunzi did not have his usual cheeky look. He just closed his eyes and sighed, "Senior brother, you've done well enough. If you hadn't suppressed the old guys in the sect all these years and balanced the forces, who knows what the Chunyang Dao sect would be like now. I haven't had much contact with my cheap master, but he has a good eye for people. Since he handed the position of the sect master to you, it proves that you're qualified to take the position." Ling Yunzi closed his eyes slightly and said, "The monks in the Buddhist sects always talk about karma and karma. I don't believe it. How can there be so much karma in this world? But now I believe it. The Chunyang Dao sect has been in the limelight for too long. Maybe even the heavens can't stand it anymore. Face? They still don't understand. To stand at the peak of the martial world, you either have to be strong enough or shameless enough. If you want face without strength, that's just embarrassing." If those who knew Ling Yunzi well in the past saw him like this, they would definitely be shocked. The Taoist sect's true master who hated evil and had a fiery temper in the past had now turned into this dejected look. Shi Yunzi stood up and said, "Senior brother, don't think too much. At least they've grown a little. If it was before, they might still say something like, 'Take revenge on your own, and there's no need to find outsiders to join forces with. I'll run around the Sabodhi monastery. Other people want face, but my face is worthless. Not to mention the Sabodhi monastery, I'll even run to the Great Light Monastery.'" Ling Yunzi suddenly opened his eyes and said, "In the Chunyang Dao sect, you're the only one who has come into contact with Chu Xiu. Do you think that if we make a move, will we be able to completely get rid of Chu Xiu?" Shi Yunzi stood up and said, "Who knows? If we can calculate such things, there won't be so much trouble. Senior brother, we have no choice. If we don't make a move, the entire Chunyang Dao sect will be in chaos. The habits and tempers that have been accumulated over several generations, my cheap master can't control them. You can't control them even after a few decades, and the next generation will probably be the same. Everyone says that the law is natural, but how is that natural? Whether they die or live, we'll leave it to fate. We'll just have to make do with our lives. How can the huge Chunyang Dao sect collapse?" After saying that, Shi Yunzi turned and walked out of the Pure Yang Palace, leaving Ling Yunzi behind with a deep sigh. The lethargy on his body became even thicker. Over 10 days later, in the Sabodhi monastery, Shi Yunzi was dressed in a luxurious embroidered Taiji Daoist robe. His hair was combed into a neat bun, and Ancestor Lu's divine weapon, Pure Yang, was hanging on his waist. He had a solemn expression on his face. His appearance was completely different from the sloppy appearance he had in the Chunyang Dao sect. When he was outside, he had to pay attention to his image. Abbot Rama, this is what the Chunyang Dao sect means now. Chu Xiu has a special identity. Touching him is equivalent to touching the entire demonic path. In the past, the eminent monk of your temple, Jingchan Jizang, failed to kill Chu Xiu and resurrect Chu Xiu. Now, it has caused even more trouble. Chu Xiu's strength has increased greatly. My senior brother, Yunzi, died in his hands. Now, Chu Xiu even controls one of the four spirits, the Blue Dragon Society. If a sharp sword stained with blood is held in the hands of a demon whose hands are stained with even more blood, the consequences are self-evident. In the past 10 years, the battle between the righteous and demonic paths on Floating Jade Mountain was considered a small skirmish. Both sides were probing each other. Although the battle between the righteous and demonic paths in the moon-worshipping sect didn't seem to have a clear winner, it led to the rise of the moon-worshipping sect. So, in fact, the righteous path has already lost. Now that Chu Xiu has risen, it also represents the rise of the Yinma clan behind him. This does not only concern our two clans, but also the righteous path of the entire martial arts world. Shi Yunzi said with a solemn expression, so, today, I represent the Chunyang Dao sect to join forces with the Sabodhi monastery and gather the power of both Taoism and Buddhism in the world. Let go of our prejudices and start the third great war between the righteous path and the demonic path to kill Chu Xiu. Chapter 887. Among all the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment cultivators, Rama was probably the youngest. Of course, compared to Shi Yunzi, Rama was still a senior. In less than 10 years, the righteous path and demonic path had fought twice. Now, Shi Yunzi was suggesting a third righteous path and demonic path. Faced with such shocking words, Luo Mo's expression didn't change at all. Looking at Shi Yunzi, Rama said plainly, Taoist Shi Yunzi, please wait a moment. Such an important matter requires our Sabodhi monastery to give it further thought. After Shi Yunzi left, Xiao Mok walked in. His eyes were bloodshot, and he stared blankly in front of him, as if he had lost focus. Can't you see the path ahead even with the eye of the heavens? Rama asked. Xiao Mok smiled bitterly and shook his head. I can't. It's all fog. The heavenly secrets have been completely messed up. Karma and reincarnation. I can't see anything. I wanted to forcefully tear open the fog, but in the end, I paid with my eyes. Xiao Mok didn't care that he had lost one eye. He was also at the true fire spirit refinement realm. His senses were very strong. In addition, he had the eye of the heaven's secret technique. Losing a pair of eyes wasn't a big deal other than inconveniencing his daily life. He was more worried about the future of the Sabodhi monastery. He would never forget the scene of Chu Xiu destroying the Sabodhi monastery. He had thought that the matter would be over after Jingchan Jizang killed Chu Xiu. Unexpectedly, Chu Xiu didn't die. It was as if the heavens really wanted the Sabodhi monastery to be destroyed by Chu Xiu. Abbot, what should we do about this? Should we join forces with the Chunyang Dao sect? Rama looked at Xiao Mok and said, do we have any other choice now? Karma and karma. What happened back then was the cause. Since it's already started, we can only bear the consequences. We have no choice. Inform the Temple of Great Light and see if they are interested. Inform all the Buddhist sects in the world that those who are willing to work with the Sabodhi monastery will gather at the Blue Dragon Society in a month. Xiao Mok nodded and immediately went to inform the monks in Sabodhi monastery to make preparations. At the same time, he also told Shi Yunzi about this news. The two sects of Taoism and Buddhism had officially joined forces and announced to the world that they were going to attack Chu Xiu. The moment both sides reached a consensus, this news was directly thrown into the underworld, and it immediately caused a huge uproar. The moon-worshipping cult's righteous path and devil path had only been fighting for a short period of time, but the Taoist and Buddhist lineages had joined hands to prepare for another righteous path and devil path war. However, this time, their target was Chu Xiu, and of course, it could also be said to be the Immortal lineage. Even if the treatment given to Chu Xiu was not comparable to that of Yi Shaonan, it was still comparable to that of the devil path that had been famous in the underworld for the past 500 years. Moreover, the commotion this time was not small. The Chunyang Dao sect, one of the three major Taoist sects, and the Sabodhi monastery of the North and South Buddhist sects had joined forces. They had also called upon all the Taoist and Buddhist sects in the world to attack together. This power was enough to make people breathless. Moreover, the Sabodhi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect were extremely domineering when they attacked. They directly announced to the underworld that they were going to attack, and they even told you the time and date of the attack. They were open and aboveboard, and they directly crushed you with force. Even if you tried to escape, they would dig you 3 feet into the ground to find you. There was no conspiracy or calculation. They just attacked directly, but there was no way to hide. This was also the usual style of the Sabodhi monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect. For a moment, the underworld surged. In the Temple of Great Light, the seats of the 6 major martial academies and the 3 major meditation halls gathered to discuss whether they should participate in this matter. In all fairness, the Temple of Great Light should go. Chu Xiu had also caused a lot of trouble in the northern Yen land, which made the Temple of Great Light very unhappy. However, previously, Chu Xiu had told the Temple of Great Light in detail about the northern Yen imperial court's attitude. This also made the Temple of Great Light know that keeping Chu Xiu alive was actually keeping the Temple of Great Light as a buffer between the northern Yen imperial court and the Temple of Great Light. The Northern Yen Imperial Court had wanted to attack the Temple of Great Light for a long time. With Chu Xiu around, the Temple of Great Light could feign civility. If Chu Xiu was not around, and someone else came, it might intensify the conflict. Therefore, this was also what the Temple of Great Light was conflicted about. Moreover, Su Ci was still in seclusion, and the Temple of Great Light lacked a final decision-maker. At that moment, Su Du suddenly stood up. It's not good for the Temple of Great Light to go, but it's also not good if we don't go. So, I'll do it myself. Everyone present immediately looked at Su Du in confusion. He would go? They were all fellow disciples who did not know each other. Su Du had never been reliable. Could it be that he had taken the initiative to volunteer at this time purely because he was tired of staying in the Temple of Great Light? Feeling everyone's gaze, Su Du immediately complained, "I say, what do you all mean by this? Can you not always judge people by their old standards? I also know the importance of this. I am one of the first seats of the 3 major meditation halls. Isn't this status enough for me to go? When the time comes, if Chu Xiu really can't hold on anymore, I'll go and eradicate the demons and unorthodox doctrines, and earn some reputation for myself. If any accidents happen, I'll be responsible for smoothing things over. The worst-case scenario is that I'll be embarrassed, but it's better for me to be embarrassed than for you guys." A strange look appeared in everyone's eyes. They did not expect Su Du to be able to see through it so clearly. Among these people, Su Du was the most suitable. With his identity, he could attack and retreat as he pleased. Most importantly, Su Du's character was already well known. Even if he were to be embarrassed, it would not cause much damage to the reputation of the Temple of Great Light. In the end, Su Yun directly made a decision and let Su Du go. However, looking at Su Du's smug expression, people could not help but wonder if he insisted on going purely because he wanted to leave the temple for a trip. On the side of the real martial arts cult, Lu Chonglu directly rejected Chunyang Dao sect's proposal. It was true that Lu Chonglu had taken part in the battle between the righteous and demonic path and moon-worshipping cult, but that time, he did not stand on the side of the real martial arts cult, but on the side of the entire righteous path, so he had no choice but to take part. However, the matter between these two sects and Chu Xiu now seemed to be caused by personal grudges. It was better for the real martial arts cult not to get involved in this kind of matter, so as to avoid being implicated by karma. At Longhu Mountain, the Celestial Master abode also received the news at almost the same time. The current ruler of Longhu Mountain was Immortal Imperial Sky, Zhang Daoling, who was also Zhang Chengzhen's father. This Immortal Imperial Sky was not too old. He was just over 50 years old this year. He looked elegant, and his character was upright and strict. He was slightly pedantic, but he did things in an orderly manner. Zhang Daoling had taken over the Celestial Master abode for less than 10 years, but he had already managed the entire Celestial Master abode in an orderly manner. Other than the important matters that required the old Celestial Master to speak, Zhang Daoling could decide everything by himself. His prestige in the Celestial Master abode was also extremely high. Even people like Xian Longzi, whose strength was far beyond Zhang Daoling, had to respectfully call him senior brother when they met. For such a big matter like this, Zhang Daoling naturally did not dare to make a decision by himself, so he had to consult the old Celestial Master. In a thatched courtyard in the mountain behind the Celestial Master abode, the old Celestial Master sat in the courtyard and basked in the sun. Beside him sat Xian Longzi and Zhang Chengzhen. Among them, Zhang Chengzhen was holding a Daoist scripture and discussing it with the old Celestial Master with a serious expression. Xian Longzi was peeling pine nuts at the side, and after peeling a pile, he placed them on the tea table beside the old Celestial Master. The treatment was like heaven and earth. Zhang Daoling stepped into the courtyard and bowed respectfully. He said in a deep voice, "Old Celestial Master, Chunyang Dao sect sent news that they have joined forces with Subodhi Monastery. They have called upon all the Buddhist and Taoist sects to encircle and annihilate Chu Xiu, and even attack the Yinma clan. Should the Celestial Master abode participate in this matter?" The old Celestial Master laid comfortably on the chair and squinted his eyes. He said, "Do you think the Celestial Master abode should participate?" Zhang Daoling pondered for a moment and said, "I think we should participate." The Celestial Master abode did not participate in the moon-worshipping cult's righteous and demonic battle last time because Yi Shaonan made the first move. His strength was too great, and it was not advisable to fight head-on. But the strength of Chu Xiu and the Yinma clan is far weaker than the moon-worshipping cult and Yi Shaonan. If we succeed in this battle, it will increase the prestige of the Celestial Master abode. It is worth it. The old Celestial Master said slowly, "Daoling, do you know why I can live to such an old age, and outlive all the old guys of my generation?" Zhang Daoling thought for a moment and said, "Is it because you have cultivated the Supreme Nine-Dragon Tiger Immortal Scripture to the extreme, and even integrated the Taoist Secret Scripture, the Great Scripture of Tao, into it, and reached a realm that surpasses the Celestial Master abode's ancestral master?" The old Celestial Master shook his head and said, "Wrong. That is because I have never meddled in other people's business." Zhang Daoling's face showed a shocked expression. Xian Longzi, who was peeling pine nuts for the old Celestial Master, was secretly laughing at the side. The old Celestial Master flicked his finger, and a small bolt of lightning struck Xian Longzi's head, causing him to jump up in pain. The old Celestial Master glared at Xian Longzi and said coldly, "Continue peeling pine nuts." Turning his head, the old Celestial Master said indifferently, "Everyone says that the Celestial Master abode is the leader of Taoism, the leader of the righteous path. Don't take it seriously. Throughout history, regardless of the righteous path or the demonic path, the one who wants to be the leader never ends up well. The Kunlun devil cult used to be the leader, but now it has been destroyed. The real martial arts sect used to be the leader, but they only had glory for a few decades. The Chunyang Dao sect is the descendant of Lu Zhu. They have been glorious for thousands of years, but they are getting worse with each generation. Don't get involved in these messy things. Do you think that your vision is far enough and that you can see the general situation of the entire Jianghu? In fact, as long as you understand your own territory, you will live longer than anyone else. Zhang Daoling was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes, I understand." After that, Zhang Daoling left. The old celestial master turned to Zhang Qingzhen and said, "Everything about your father is good, but he is too inflexible. He doesn't know how to be flexible." Xian Longzi grinned and said, "Old celestial master, you are speaking ill of someone's father in front of his son. That is not very nice." The old celestial master did not speak, but gently flicked his finger again. But this time, a purple heaven thunderbolt as thick as a water bucket came crashing down. Chapter 888. Chu Xiu also received the news when the pugilistic world was in turmoil. However, he didn't expect that the first trouble would not come from the outside world, but from his own side. To be more precise, it came from the Yinma clan. Previously, Chu Xiu had already understood the attitude of the entire Yinma clan. In the entire Yinma clan, apart from Wei Shiya's clan, probably only the phaseless demon sect would stand on Chu Xiu's side. As for the Crimson Demon sect, Yu Moya, Wu Ma Hai and the others, they almost all remained neutral. The overall benefits of the Yinma clan weren't that attractive to them. However, there were still some people who not only didn't think about the benefits of the entire Yinma clan, but also wanted to gain benefits from the entire Yinma clan. When they found out that the Subodhi Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect had joined forces with the Buddhist sects and Daoist sects to attack Chu Xiu, and even implicate the entire Yinma clan, several big shots of the Yinma clan came to the Blue Dragon Society to look for Chu Xiu. It was as if they were here to denounce him. They came of their own accord. When the news of Chu Xiu's death spread, it was Wei Shiya who informed them. In the meeting hall of the Blue Dragon Society, Wei Shiya sat gloomily. At the same time, there were two people sitting beside him. One of them was Qin Chaoxian from the Crimson Demon sect. He wasn't here to denounce them, but to mediate. In the past, the Crimson Demon sect was also one of the vassal sects of the Kunlun Devil cult. After the Kunlun Devil cult was destroyed, the Crimson Demon sect suffered a heavy blow. Later on, the Crimson Demon sect reduced the number of disciples and eliminated those with average talents. Those who could stay in the Crimson Demon sect were the elites of the elites. At the very least, there were less than 100 people. However, that was when the Crimson Demon sect was at its strongest. For so many years, the Scarlet Drill Devil sect had only focused on their own territory. In Wei Shiya's words, Qin Chaoxian and the entire Scarlet Drill Devil sect still had feelings for the Yinma clan. However, it was obvious that the Scarlet Drill Devil sect would definitely choose the latter when there was a conflict between the interests of the Yinma clan and their own sect. Now, seeing that the anger within the Hidden Devil clan was getting stronger and stronger, and there was even a trend of internal strife, although Qin Chaoxian did not intend to help, he planned to come over and mediate. Sitting on the other side of Wei Shiya was a man shrouded in a black robe. He wore a hood on his head, and his face was always shrouded in a layer of fog, making it difficult to see his appearance clearly, and it was impossible to tell his age. This person was the sect leader of the Phaseless Devil sect, the thousand-faced faceless Ren Qianxiu. This person's background and strength were extremely mysterious. Even Wei Shiya did not know much about them. However, this person had a great reputation in the Yinma clan. This was because this person had once destroyed the Nangong clan of the previous generation of the 9 great families with his own strength. Although Chu Xiu had destroyed many families, regardless of whether it was conspiracies or head-on confrontations, almost all of them ended with the word kill. However, Ren Qianxiu was different. He had displayed the secrets of the Phaseless Devil sect to the extreme. He had changed his identity and lurked in the Nangong clan. As a guest military advisor, he had gained the attention of everyone in the Nangong clan. In a few years, he had led the Nangong clan from the bottom of the 9 great families to the middle of the 9 great families. Along the way, he had joined forces and provoked disputes between the 9 great families. If it was not for some accidents that caused the Xianxia clan to stop the expansion of the Nangong clan, and eventually let the other families join forces to destroy the Nangong clan, Ren Qianxiu might really have been able to stir up a storm in the Jianghu with his own strength. Even in the end, the people of the Nangong clan did not find anything wrong with him. When the Nangong clan was destroyed, they still protected Ren Qianxiu and wanted him to avenge the Nangong clan. Ren Qianxiu came here to discuss the countermeasures with Chu Xiu, and to support Chu Xiu and Wei Shuya. At this moment, standing in front of Chu Xiu were three big shots in the true fire spirit refinement realm of the Immortal clan. In the past, Chu Xiu had only vaguely heard their voices. This was the first time he had seen them face to face. Chu Wuji stood behind Chu Xiu and introduced them to him in a low voice. "Do you see that old man with a dead face who was just dug out of the graveyard? He was the sect master of the Ghost Underworld sect, Situ Chi. His Ghost Underworld sect was not ranked in the Kunlun Devil cult, and the ancestors of the Ghost Underworld sect were only in the true fire spirit refinement realm. There were less than 10 people in the entire Ghost Underworld sect, and they were struggling at death's door. However, this old man had recently taken in a talented disciple, and he was showing off. There was also an old woman in a blood-colored robe with a red lotus on her head. Her name was Li Jiaodi, and she claimed to be the successor of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable. In fact, she was just a young mistress of a poor family. She had accidentally obtained a little bit of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's inheritance, which was why she had embarked on the evil path. At her current cultivation level, she probably had less than 10% of the Red Lotus Demon Venerable's inheritance. How could she be called a successor? This woman had been dumped by a man a long time ago, so she was extreme in her actions and had a sharp and unkind personality. In the entire Mo clan, no one liked her. If it wasn't for the fact that she had the strength of the true fire spirit refinement realm, and that the Mo clan was indeed lacking people, they wouldn't even accept this kind of person into the Mo clan. The last old man, who was dressed like an opera singer and didn't look like someone from the Central Plains, was the Fire Demon Venerable, Kun Mo. He was the successor of a branch of the Kunlun Devil cult in the far west desert of the Kunlun Devil cult. However, that branch was once destroyed by those bastards from the Rakshasa sect. The others fought to the end, but Kun Mo's ancestor abandoned his fellow sect members and ran away. Those who are not of the same clan are definitely not of the same mind. Those outsiders are just unreliable. After listening to Chu Wuji's introduction, there were only 2 words in Chu Xiu's mind: scattered sand. This was the current state of the Hidden Devil clan. Only a few people, like Wei Shuya, really contributed. The others only focused on their own interests. What difference did it make if this group of people was present or not? There were so many true fire spirit refinement realm and so many martial Dao grandmasters in the Hidden Devil clan. Although they weren't weak, they couldn't even exert 1/10 of their strength in a real fight. Now it seemed that Chu Xiu had overestimated them. Not to mention exerting their strength, they had already developed to the extent of being a hindrance. Wei Shuya said lightly, "What do you guys want by coming here? To help us deal with the Sabodhi Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect?" Situ Chi was the first to stand up and said, "Elder Wei, you must be joking. The Hidden Devil clan has enough troubles now. If we rush forward, we'll be sending the entire Hidden Devil clan to their graves." Wei Shuya didn't even look up and said lightly, "Sending the Hidden Devil clan to their graves? This old man has lived for so many years, what kind of storms and waves have I not seen? In the past, situations that were even more severe than this have appeared, and the Inma clan has not been destroyed. Could it be that I can't even get through this little trouble?" Li Jiaodi said loudly, "Elder Wei, even if the Hidden Devil clan can survive this time, can you guarantee that no one will continue to cause trouble next time? It was originally a good thing that Chu Xiu escaped from Jingchan Jizang, but why did he provoke the Chunyang Dao sect? That was the head of the Heavenly Dipper Hall's 6 guardians. Chu Xiu killed him just like that. Do you think you're Patriarch Dugu? In all fairness, Li Jiaoti's appearance was actually not bad. Although she was a little older, it could be seen that she was also a beauty when she was young. However, her eyebrows were sharp, and her lips were thin and curled up. She was born with such a mean appearance, and her words were even more unpleasant. It was no wonder that she was dumped by a man. In the end, Kunmo didn't say much. He just said lightly in a somewhat clumsy Central Plains Chinese, "Elder Wei, the Hidden Devil clan has always been more than one person. Next time there's such a big matter, can you discuss it with us?" Wei Shuya's expression didn't change. He just looked at Chu Xiu, who was sitting at the head of the table. He gently raised his eyebrows and said, "They're here for you. Say a few words." Qin Chaoxian, who was at the side, was a little uneasy. Although he didn't have much contact with Chu Xiu, he also understood his character. He was absolutely unyielding, and there was no such thing as giving in. If Situ Chi and the others had spoken tactfully, it would have been fine. But now, they had come to denounce Chu Xiu. They were almost brazenly saying that Chu Xiu had implicated them and the entire Hidden Devil clan. However, before Qin Chaoxian could come forward to persuade them, Chu Xiu had already stood up. He looked at the three people in front of him and said lightly, "Are you all done?" The three people looked at each other, not knowing what Chu Xiu meant. Pointing to the door, Chu Xiu said coldly, "Since you're all done, then get out of here." Hearing this, Qin Chaoxian immediately felt that something was wrong, while Situ Chi and the others all exploded. They were all existences in the true fire spirit refinement realm, the big shots of the Hidden Devil clan. Usually, no matter which family's juniors met them, they would all be respectful. Who would dare to be rude to them in front of them? Situ Chi, how dare you? Li Jiaoti, how dare you? Kunmo, and hashtag and asterisk. A series of Western region words were spat out. Although no one understood them, they were obviously not good words. Looking at the people present, Chu Xiu said coldly, "I've given you face, but you really think you're some kind of senior expert? Do you think you're qualified to represent the entire Hidden Devil clan?" In the past, the 9 heavenly demons of the 9 heavenly mountains were the orthodox of the Devil Path, and Mr. Ren of the Phaseless Demons sect was also the orthodox of the Holy Sect. Who do you think you are? I've given you some face, but you still dare to open a dye shop in front of me. You don't know what you're talking about. Chu Xiu looked at the three people below and said coldly, "If the Subhuti Zen monastery attacks, I'll take care of it. If the Chunyang Dao sect attacks, I'll take care of it too. If you want to die, go far away. If you dare to talk nonsense in front of me again, do you believe that I won't kill you as a sacrifice? It's not like I haven't killed people in the true fire spirit refinement realm. Zhang Yunzi just died in my hands. Do you dare to try and see if Zhang Yunzi's skull is hard, or if your heads are iron?" Chapter 889. Chu Xiu's attitude could no longer be considered tough. He simply didn't take Situ Chi and the others seriously. Of course, this was indeed the case. Now, Chu Xiu had the qualifications to look down on them. In the past, Chu Xiu gave them face, not only because he was a junior in the Yinma clan, but also because he needed to rely on the Yinma clan to gain a foothold in Jianghu. But now? As Chu Xiu said, these three people were just poor people. Did they have the qualifications to bark in front of him? At present, Chu Xiu had the entire Blue Dragon Society, the Jianghu Hall, the Guanzhong Torture Room, and Luo Feiheng's 9-branch hall. These forces all listened to Chu Xiu's command. With such powerful forces added together, except for those who stood at the peak of Jianghu, who dared not challenge Chu Xiu? Situ Chi's so-called ghost underworld sect only had 2 or 3 people, and Li Jiaoti was alone. It was said that Kunmo had a few disciples, but not many. With such a force, they dared to stand in front of Chu Xiu and talk to him. They simply didn't know what they were doing. At this moment, Situ Chi and the other two were fuming with rage. They were all seniors in Jianghu. In terms of seniority, which one of them wasn't above Chu Xiu? However, this Chu Xiu dared to humiliate them like this. He was simply courting death. However, before they could say anything, Qin Chaoxian immediately stood up and consoled them one by one. Everyone, calm down. My Immortal clan has already suffered so many disasters. Others haven't even come to our door, and we are already fighting among ourselves. We can only let others see us as a joke. Qin Chaoxian said to Chu Xiu, don't blame Situ Chi and the others for being rude. People of the Immortal clan always speak like this. They are all straightforward. In fact, they are also thinking of the Immortal clan. They have no malice. Qin Chaoxian turned around and said to Situ Chi and the others, I know you are all thinking of the Immortal clan, but now Subodhi Monastery and Chunyang Dao sect have come to our door. It has already happened. It is too late to say anything. Although he said this, Qin Chaoxian secretly transmitted his voice to the three of them, the three of you, it's unwise for you to provoke Chu Xiu now. I heard that the divine monk Rama has already taken action. I am afraid that Chu Xiu will not be able to resist this time. He can be reborn in the hands of the true fire spirit refinement realm, but can he be reborn in the hands of the heaven and earth metaphysic realm experts? To put it bluntly, I am afraid that Chu Xiu will not be able to survive this calamity. Because of this, if you provoke Chu Xiu at this time, it will only make him more crazy. The three of you, I am doing this for your own good. You did not see how Chu Xiu fought Jingchan Jizang to death. They were really two madmen who did not care about their lives and dragged each other down with them. He is about to die. Do you think he will still care about the rules of the Immortal clan and things like seniority? I advise you to not meddle in these matters as soon as possible. Know when to stop. We can talk about other things later. Hearing Qin Chaoxian's words, the expressions of the three people present changed slightly. It had to be said that nothing was more useful than direct threats of force. Chu Xiu was powerful. It was a publicly acknowledged fact that he could fight an existence at the true fire spirit refinement realm to death. Moreover, Chu Xiu's craziness was also publicly acknowledged. With these two things together, in addition to Qin Chaoxian's words, they were really worried that Chu Xiu would sacrifice them in his madness. Therefore, the three of them did not even say anything harsh in the end. They immediately turned around and left dejectedly. Qin Chaoxian did not know what to say at this moment. He only cupped his hands at everyone present and turned to leave. Wei Shuya raised his head and let out a long sigh. His tone contained feelings of helplessness, disappointment, and so on. At this moment, Ren Qinxiu said, Elder Wei, you don't have to worry about such trash. If the sect master were to rebuild the sacred sect in the future, he would not even take a liking to them. The Immortal clan that you painstakingly maintained is actually not valued by them at all. What Chu said just now was very true. They are just a group of impoverished people. Do they really think that they are important? Ren Qianxiu's voice was very magnetic and gave people a very comfortable feeling. At the same time, his tone also contained a trace of arrogance. Although the Phaseless Demon sect was not considered a direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil cult, it was one of the many vassal sects that had the closest relationship with the Kunlun Devil cult. At its peak, the Phaseless Demon sect even had 3 demon envoys of the Kunlun Devil cult at the same time. Although the position of demon envoys was only a title and could not command the direct descendant of the Kunlun Devil cult, it also represented the attitude of the Kunlun Devil cult, an attitude that recognized you. Compared to the Phaseless Demon sect, the 3 people were standard impoverished people. Wei Shuya sighed again and said, but this also proves that I is incompetent. After so many years, the entire hidden devil lineage has become like this. Chu Xiu also said, no, this just proves your ability, old Wei. Without you, I am afraid that the hidden devil lineage would have fallen apart a long time ago. Wei Shuya waved his hand and said, "All right, let's not talk so much for now. Chu Xiu brat, they have already fought their way to our door, have you arranged everything?" A trace of sharpness flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "The arrangements are almost done. This time, I invited sect head Ren here because I want to trouble the phaseless demon sect to take action." Ren Qinli said, "Chu, you don't have to be polite. You are the person who obtained the sect head's inheritance, so naturally, you are a direct descendant of the Kunlun devil cult. It doesn't matter if Situ Chi and the others live or die, but if something happens to you, the phaseless demon sect will not ignore it, Chu." Right now, the various branches of the phaseless demon sect in Eastern Qi have gathered and are ready to resist the attack of the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect at any time. Chu Xiu squinted his eyes and said, "It is such a waste for the phaseless demon sect to use such a powerful force to defend. Why can they attack me, but I can't attack them? The battlefield of the phaseless demon sect is not at the Eastern Qi. Then where is it? The old lair of the Subhuti Monastery in the southern barbarian land." A trace of sharpness appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "Although we are currently at a disadvantage in terms of strength, it is not my style to sit still and wait for death. Attack with attack, kill to stop killing. I want to see who will be the first to give up." Just when Chu Xiu had almost arranged everything, the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect had already made their move. In fact, the speed of these two sects could be faster, but with the edict of the two sects, all the people in the entire Jianghu from the Taoist sects and the Buddhist sects were all mobilized. This number was extremely astonishing. In the Jianghu, there were not only the three major Taoist sects and the Buddhist sections. The mainstream cultivation system in the entire Jianghu was actually the three branches of Taoism, Buddhism, and Demon. Although there were few big sects, some medium-sized sects, small sects, and a group of rogue martial artists, their number was extremely astonishing. Therefore, under the edict, countless martial artists from the Taoist sects and Buddhist sects gathered in the Eastern Qi, ready to completely strangle Chu Xiu, the evil demon, with one blow. Maybe they could also destroy the entire hidden devil clan. Outside the barren mountain at the junction of Eastern Qi and Western Chu, tens of thousands of martial artists gathered here. A portion of them were people from the Taoist and Buddhist sects, while the rest were here to watch the show. In less than a decade, the Jianghu had consecutively experienced three great battles between the orthodox and the demonic. Although the scale of this battle was not as large as the one at the moon-worshipping cult, it was not small either. In the middle of the crowd was a large tent. The martial artists from the Subhuti Monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect, as well as Su Du from the Great Light Temple were all here. Besides them, there were also a few monks and Taoist priests present. They were all rogue martial artists or seniors from the Taoist and Buddhist sects who came from small temples or Taoist temples. Although they did not reveal themselves most of the time, at this time, after receiving the edict, their strength was shocking. When they joined forces, they were not weaker than the top big sections. However, due to various reasons, they did not like to enter the big sects to cultivate. They would rather live a leisurely life. They would only take action when something major that concerned the Taoist and Buddhist sects happened. In the past, Ling Yunzi had not been out of the Chunyang Dao sect for a long time, so he was dressed rather sloppily. At the moment, his grayish-white hair was meticulously combed, and the golden Tai Chi Taoist robe he wore was dazzling. He looked like an immortal, but the sharp aura he had when he was younger was nowhere to be seen. Chunyang Dao sect's ancestral divine weapon, Pure Yang, was not in Ling Yunzi's hands, but in Shi Yunzi's. This divine weapon was very strange. Ordinary people could not use it at all. Although Ling Yunzi could use it, he could only barely. This divine weapon was extremely compatible with Shi Yunzi, so Pure Yang had always been with Shi Yunzi. Ling Yunzi said in a deep voice, "Abbot Rama, almost everyone is here. As for how we should act, we need to have a plan." This was a rare occasion for the Taoist and Buddhist sects to work together. However, before they could act, they were also facing problems internally. The Taoist and Buddhist sects could not coexist. Previously, because of their orthodoxies, the Taoist and Buddhist sects had many conflicts. Now that the two sects were working together, not only were the Sabodhi Zen monastery and the Chunyang Dao sect not used to it, but the martial artists who had come after hearing the imperial edict were also not used to it. Therefore, before they could act, they had already started fighting among themselves. Fortunately, as people in charge, Rama and Ling Yunzi were sensible people. They would not fight for power at such a time. Rama was very strong, and the other party was also a figure on the sovereign list. Therefore, Ling Yunzi was willing to give the command to the other party. Rama didn't shirk the responsibility. He took out a map and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Azure Dragon Association is surrounded by spell formations. Ordinary people won't be able to enter. Furthermore, I suspect that Chu Xiu has set up a large number of killing formations in the maze. Therefore, everyone from the Taoist sects will be the first to break the formation. The Buddhist disciples will stand guard at the side. We have never worked together before, so there is no need to force ourselves to work together. After breaking the formation, we will fight on our own. This is actually more reliable than arranging a formation." Just as Ling Yunzi was about to nod in agreement, a loud and clear voice suddenly resounded for several miles. "Those who come are guests. Breaking the door is disgraceful. The door has already been opened for everyone. Whether you dare to enter or not is up to you." Chapter 890. Chu Xiu's voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. The maze that the Blue Dragon Society had set up actually disappeared on its own, revealing the Blue Dragon Society's iconic palace that resembled a majestic azure dragon emerging from the sea. Luo Mo and Ling Yunzi looked at each other with a hint of astonishment in their eyes. Chu Xiu had actually taken the initiative to open the maze. Was he really prepared to fight them fair and square? Where did he get his confidence from? The moon-worshipping church would not make a move this time. Moreover, Yi Shaonan was currently in seclusion. Apart from Yi Shaonan, it would be useless for anyone else from the moon-worshipping church to make a move. Ling Yunzi looked at Rama. "Abbot Rama, since they have already come forward to invite us, what about us?" A faint smile appeared on Rama's lips. Of course, it would be impolite to refuse. As Ling Yunzi and Rama's orders were passed down, tens of thousands of people directly surged towards the Blue Dragon Society. The Blue Dragon Society, which had been sealed off for countless years, was now revealed to everyone for the first time. However, it was in such a way. In front of the Blue Dragon Society, Chu Xiu's blood-red robe fluttered in the wind. Facing the tens of thousands of martial artists from the Buddhist and Taoist lineages, Chu Xiu's expression did not change. Instead, he took the initiative to greet them. "I never thought that there would be a day where I, Chu Xiu, would receive such treatment. It seems that everyone can't wait to kill me, Chu Xiu, one day." There were actually more martial artists watching the battle than the martial artists from the Buddhist and Taoist lineages. Seeing Chu Xiu's appearance, they had to admit that, at least in terms of temperament, Chu Xiu was really worthy of his current reputation. He already had the bearing of a big shot in the demonic path. If it were anyone else, they would either be afraid and flee in panic, or they would completely fall into hysterical madness. There were very few people who could be as calm as Chu Xiu. Ling Yunzi looked behind Chu Xiu. His expression was a little strange. He felt that something was wrong. Behind Chu Xiu was Wei Shuya, one of the 5 great sky fiends of the 9th heaven mountain. He also had Chu Xiu's good friend, Lu Fengxian, who had inherited the legacy of the devil god Lv Wenho and was quite famous among the younger generation. There were also some people from the northern Yan Jinwu Hall and Guanzhong torture room, as well as people from the 9-branch hall under Chu Xiu's good friend Luo Feiheng. In total, there were more than 10,000 of them. But to be honest, compared to the elites of the Chunyang Dao sect, Subodhi Monastery, and the Taoist and Buddhist sects, Chu Xiu's subordinates could only be described as a motley crew. How could Chu Xiu resist the joint attack of Taoism and Buddhism just by relying on this motley crew? Had he already given up? At that moment, Rama said softly, "It's not that I want to kill you, but you already expected this day to come, didn't you? You can still be reborn after your body is shattered. This kind of mystic technique is described in some ancient books. I believe that it should be very easy for you to change to a new identity when your body is reconstructed. Chu Xiu is the enemy of the pugilistic world. You should know how much karma you are carrying. Jingchan Jizang killed you, but he also severed the karma on you. Unfortunately, you gave up this opportunity and killed Zhang Yunzi. You have to bear this karma again." What Rama said was actually something that most people in the pugilistic world were puzzled about. Although reconstructing one's body was a little shocking, it was not unheard of. When everyone thought that Chu Xiu was dead, Chu Xiu could totally change his identity and step into the pugilistic world openly. Unfortunately, he did not choose to do so. To others, it was not a wise choice. Looking up at the sky, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Master Rama is right. I do have another choice. It's not that I can't choose, but I don't want to choose. What exactly is a person living for? Some people serve Buddha for life. Some people study Taoist scriptures to seek the great Tao of the world." Chu Xiu pointed at himself and said, "In this life, I, Chu Xiu, only live for myself." Chu Xiu's Chu, Xiu's Xiu. Chu Xiu's words were not only said to Rama, but also to everyone present. It was also said to the existence in the dark. Regardless of whether he was Lin Yi from his previous life or whether he had some confusing connection with Dugu Weiwei, he, Chu Xiu, was Chu Xiu now. He could only be Chu Xiu. Rama gently raised his eyebrows. This legendary divine monk's every move seemed to have a kind of magical Buddha nature, which moved people's hearts and souls. However, I'm very curious. What are you going to use to stop me today? You can't win against the mysterious heaven and earth. Rama's tone was not arrogant. He was only stating a fact. The fact that Chu Xiu could fight Jingchan Jizang to death and kill Zhang Yunzi was enough to prove Chu Xiu's strength. However, the mysterious heaven and earth and the true fire spirit refinement realm had always been two different realms. The former was already a supreme existence that stood at the peak of the pugilistic world. Chu Xiu lightly said, "It's true that I can't defeat you, Master Rama. Therefore, your opponent today is not me." As he said that, Chu Xiu shouted behind him, "City Master Shang, stop eating. It's your turn." Shang Tianliang was wearing a brand new black and gold robe. However, he was still holding a roasted chicken in his hand. He kept chewing on it and swallowed it in a few bites. He even wiped his greasy hands on his robe. He did not look like a powerhouse at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. He looked like an old man that was about to starve to death. In reality, that was indeed the case. What was the mysterious heaven and earth realm in a place like Luda that was like hell on earth? *T. The black storm would not let you go just because you were at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Apart from being slightly stronger, Shang Tianliang was no different from anyone else. Other than thinking about how to live, he also had to think about how to let the people in Merchant City live. After coming here, Shang Tianliang knew that he was here to be a fighter, so he did not ask any questions. He had been eating and drinking for the past few days. In fact, Shang Tianliang was not only eating and drinking to satisfy his insatiable appetite. He also wanted to recover some primordial qi. Although Shang Tianliang was at the mysterious heaven and earth realm, he had been staying in a place like Ludu for a long time. His true qi could not be replenished. Some parts of his body had been damaged, and even his meridians had withered. While he was eating and drinking, Shang Tianliang was also relying on the essence qi in the food to repair the flaws in his body. He did not waste any time. The people around him had strange expressions. Was Chu Xiu going to rely on this old man to resist divine monk Rama? He must have lost his mind, right? Everyone looked like they were watching a joke. Only Rama frowned. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "I don't know you." The others could not see anything wrong with Shang Tianliang. Although Shang Tianliang did not have to worry about the consumption of true qi in the outside world, he still subconsciously restrained the true qi in his body. However, Rama, who was also at the mysterious heaven and earth realm, could see Shang Tianliang's background. There were only a few mysterious heaven and earth realms in the pugilistic world. Even if there were some old monsters who had not appeared in the pugilistic world for decades, Rama could not match up to him. Shang Tianliang grinned and said, "I don't know you either. Are you a monk?" Interesting. Very interesting. There might be people who practiced Buddhist martial arts in Ludu, but there were definitely no monks. When everyone opened their eyes, they did not know if they could see the sun tomorrow. You go and tell people that all lives are equal and the Buddha is merciful? Go to hell, you would definitely be beaten to death on the spot. Therefore, Shang Tianliang really felt that the profession of being a monk was very interesting. However, he did not say much to Rama because he knew that he was here to be a fighter. Since he was going to be a fighter, he did not care about anything else. There was only one word: fight. As Shang Tianliang's voice fell, the ground under his feet cracked. His body was like a cannonball as he blasted straight at Rama. Using his palm as a knife, in the next moment, a majestic knife energy condensed around Shang Tianliang. It was as if his entire body had become a knife. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth was absorbed around his body. From afar, one could not see Shang Tianliang's figure at all. One could only see the huge knife light slashing towards Rama. Rama chanted, and a strange and profound syllable was uttered. In the next moment, a golden light flashed in front of him. Shang Tianliang's blade slashed on the light screen, and all the light from the blade was absorbed by it. "Break!" Shang Tianliang shouted in a low voice. His hands tore apart. Powerful spiritual energy of heaven and earth erupted from his hands and directly tore the light screen apart. He stepped forward and punched. A majestic spiritual energy of heaven and earth poured into Shang Tianliang's body, causing his punch to be like a spear that could shatter the sky. It was incomparably sharp and extraordinary. In Ludu, Shang Tianliang was in existence at the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Not only could he not use too much spiritual energy, he could not even use a trace of the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Now that he was in the outside world, Shang Tianliang finally understood what true power was. This was the power of the Shang ancestors as described in the ancient books. This was also the power realm that he should be at. In Ludu, Shang Tianliang did not like to fight. It should be said that every person in Ludu did not like to fight. However, their killing intent and killing intent were stronger than anyone else's. This was because it was not a battle, but a life of life and death. However, after fighting with Rama this time, Shang Tianliang understood what true fighting intent was. Facing the spear that seemed like it could pierce through the sky, Rama used the flower-picking seal. The seemingly weak Buddhist seal caused the huge spear that Shang Tianliang had condensed to start shattering. Rama gently tapped Shang Tianliang's fist with a finger. However, Shang Tianliang's entire body was blasted away. He smashed into the ground and created a huge pit that was more than 30 meters wide. The Buddha used the flower-picking seal. All the magical powers were hidden in silence. Although Rama seemed to have blasted Shang Tianliang away easily, in the next moment, Shang Tianliang had already climbed out of the pit. He was not injured at all. He even shouted, "Awesome!" In the next moment, his figure appeared in front of Rama again. His hands were like dragon claws that tore through everything. He continued to attack Rama. Chapter 891. In the fight between Shang Tianliang and Luo Mo, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Luo Mo had the absolute advantage. Moreover, in the Green Du space, Shang Tianliang had not even fought with people of the same realm. After all, there were only 2 or 3 people who could reach the mysterious realm in that place, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. Even when fighting with Luo Mo, Shang Tianliang was filled with an extremely uncomfortable feeling. This was the first time he had fought in a place with such an abundance of heaven and earth essence. This made it extremely difficult for him to unleash his strength. Therefore, everyone could only see that every time Shang Tianliang charged forward with an extraordinary aura, he would be sent flying by Luo Mo. However, as the fight went on, Luo Mo frowned slightly. This existence in the mysterious realm in front of him was very strange. His opponent's martial arts skills were extremely shaky, and his fighting style was also extremely strange. In any case, he was not considered strong. At least, among all the mysterious realm experts that Luo Mo knew, this person's strength should be the lowest. However, there was one thing that was extremely difficult to deal with, and that was that he was very resistant to beatings. That's right. Compared to Luo Mo and the other mysterious realm experts, Shang Tianliang's only advantage was his resistance to beatings. In a place like Green Du, Shang Tianliang had constantly tempered his body. It could be said that even if he did not deliberately cultivate a body-refining technique, in terms of the strength of his body, not many people could surpass Shang Tianliang. In addition, Shang Tianliang's willpower and physique had been tempered in an extremely harsh environment. Even though Shang Tianliang's combat strength was much lower than Luo Mo's, it was still impossible for Luo Mo to defeat Shang Tianliang in a short period of time. At that moment, among the spectators, there were 2 people looking at Shang Tianliang in shock. These 2 people were Eastern Qi's LV Zhanlu and White Tiger Hall's Helian Changfeng. LV Zhanlu even shouted in a low voice, "Lunatic. Chu Xiu is a lunatic." Others might not know Shang Tianliang, but LV Zhanlu and Helian Changfeng knew him. They never thought that Chu Xiu would actually be able to enter that place again and bring out the people from that space. The last time they entered Green City, they were just passers-by. They didn't carefully investigate Green City's roots like Chu Xiu did. However, they were able to guess that none of those who were able to grow up in an extremely adverse environment like Green City were easy to deal with. Once this group of people escaped, the sudden appearance of such a force would definitely be a huge blow to the current Jianghu. Chu Xiu was definitely a madman. For his own benefit, what else could he not do? When the other Taoist and Buddhist cultivators saw how intense the fight between Rama and Shang Tianliang was, they roared and wanted to start the fight immediately. Ling Yunzi sighed and waved his hand. The people of Chunyang Dao sect immediately quietened down. Looking at Chu Xiu, Ling Yunzi said in a low voice, "Actually, I don't like senior brother Zhang Yunzi because he is too strict. I remember when we were young, senior brother Zhang Yunzi was in charge of watching over us when we were writing Dao scriptures from memory. If we made a mistake, we would get hit with a board. Later on, I became the sect leader of Chunyang Dao sect and my status was finally higher than senior brother Zhang Yunzi's. However, I still don't like him because he represents the most paranoid and decadent side of Chunyang Dao sect." The other disciples of Chunyang Dao sect looked at each other. They didn't know why the sect leader would criticize their own people in front of Chu Xiu. However, Ling Yunzi changed the topic. He slowly pulled out the Dao sword that was flickering with pure yang qi and said in a low voice, "However, senior brother Zhang Yunzi is senior brother Zhang Yunzi after all. He is my senior brother and the leader of the 6 spiritual masters of Tiangang Hall of Chunyang Dao sect. You should know how the entire Chunyang Dao sect will react after you kill him. Sometimes, there is no right or wrong in the pugilistic world, only what should be done and what should not be done. I haven't been out in the pugilistic world for decades. Today, I want to see what the young heroes who stand at the peak of the pugilistic world look like. I want to see if there are really talented people in every generation and the new generation surpasses the old. As Ling Yunzi's voice fell, the glaring pure yang qi around him rose into the air. It was as if he had returned to the days when he was young, when he had destroyed a large devil sect with his own strength. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and also took out the heavenly war case. With a slight sound of gears, the heavenly war case instantly turned into the peerless heavenly saber. Ling Yunzi was somewhat beyond Chu Xiu's expectations. In his imagination, Chu Xiu thought that Ling Yunzi should be the same kind of person as Zhang Yunzi. However, when he saw Ling Yunzi, Chu Xiu realized that he was wrong. The other party was not Zhang Yunzi, but a person who understood. He knew where the real shortcomings of Chunyang Dao sect were, but he couldn't change it. That was because in the entire Chunyang Dao sect, the powerful people were all stubborn and rotten like Zhang Yunzi. Not only could he not change Chunyang Dao sect, but he also had to follow the rules of Chunyang Dao sect. For example, today, as the sect master of Chunyang Dao sect, he had to stand here and fight with Chu Xiu. Otherwise, Chunyang Dao sect would definitely fall into more internal strife because of personal feelings. Just as Ling Yunzi said, for Ling Yunzi, there was no right or wrong in this battle. There was only what should be done and what shouldn't be done. The situation had already reached this point, and it was too late for both sides to retreat. Therefore, while holding the peerless heavenly saber, Chu Xiu only spat out one word, kill. As soon as he said that, Wei Shuya and the others behind Chu Xiu all rushed out. At that moment, the internal array of the Blue Dragon Society had already been activated. Green radiance circulated, and with a dragon's roar, the green brilliance struck down like thunder. A unity of heaven and man realm martial artist who couldn't dodge in time was directly vaporized by the green radiance, leaving not even a trace behind. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. None of them could have imagined that the Azure Dragon Society's spell formation would be this powerful. At this moment, everyone recalled the roots of the Blue Dragon Society. It was a part of the Four Symbols sect in the past, and the place where the Blue Dragon Society was located was the ruins of the Four Symbols sect in the past. Since ancient times, when it came to array Dao, if the Black Tortoise branch of the Four Symbols sect claimed to be the best, no one would dare to say that they were second. After the great calamity of the ancient times, the array at the headquarters of the Blue Dragon Society had actually been almost destroyed. Thankfully, the forefathers of the Azure Dragon Society were far-sighted. They invited the Formation Dao Grandmasters of the Black Tortoise Society to repair the Azure Dragon Society's formations. After several generations of effort, they were finally able to restore the Azure Dragon Society's formations to their former glory days. Among the four spirits, only the Blue Dragon Society had a grudge against the White Tiger Hall. As for the Black Tortoise sect and the Vermilion Bird Pavilion, one only liked to set up arrays and refine various mechanical parts, while the other only knew how to refine medicine. Therefore, they didn't have any grudges against each other. As the #1 assassin organization in the world, the Blue Dragon Society had a deep financial foundation, so they could afford to invite the Black Tortoise sect to help them so many times. Over the years, the Blue Dragon Society had killed countless people. Although they were only hired assassins, there were still some sects that hated the Blue Dragon Society to the bone. After so many years, the Blue Dragon Society hadn't been annihilated, and it could be said that the array was a big part of the reason why the Blue Dragon Society hadn't been wiped out. Originally, Chu Xiu's side was in an absolutely disadvantageous situation, but with the help of the array, he wouldn't be defeated for a while. At this time, in the field, Ling Yunzi's body was shining with dazzling pure yang astral energy. He walked towards Chu Xiu step by step, and with every step, the pure yang astral energy under his feet was dazzling, but there was also the radiance of the stars shining, as if he was connected to the stars in the sky, condensing a layer of resplendent starry veil around Ling Yunzi. Astral steps. Lu Jiang, he called out in a low voice from the blood soul bead, and with a solemn expression, he said, Chu Xiu kid, be careful. The strength of this Daoist isn't that simple. Astral steps, worship the radiance of the Big Dipper, and welcome the power of the gods of the stars. This is a secret technique of Taoism, and there have been many similar techniques among the branches of Taoism, but there aren't many that can really attract the power of the gods of the stars. Without Lu Jiang he saying it, Chu Xiu also knew that the strength of the Chunyang Dao sect leader, who hadn't come out for decades, was infinitely close to the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm. Ling Yunzi slashed down with the pure yang as the sun, and the radiance of the stars circled around him. His entire body was like heaven and earth. That slash wasn't a murderous intent, but a kind of Tao operation rule between heaven and earth. It was like Tao connotation, but it could modify the rules within a few miles. In an instant, Chu Xiu's body was already pitch black, and only the great sun and the radiance of the stars were rotating in front of him, crashing down on him. Chu Xiu also didn't expect Ling Yunzi's strength to be at such a level. When he attacked, he already had a bit of the aura of a heaven and earth elemental enlightenment expert who could control the power of heaven and earth. With a low shout, the peerless heavenly blade slashed down, and the endless demonic chi sword radiance scattered in all directions. The sea-breaking blade fell, and the extreme strength of the blade was even a little too much for the heavenly Tao war case to bear, and there was a strange sound of mechanical movement. The blade of the seven limits tore the darkness in front of him apart, and the demonic chi and the pure yang chi intertwined and constantly exploded in mid-air. At this time, Ling Yunzi made a Taoist seal with his hand, and a strange syllable came out of his mouth. Taoist patterns appeared in the starry sky, and layer after layer suppressed Chu Xiu's body, instantly extinguishing the demonic chi around him. In less than 3 moves, Chu Xiu had already fallen into an absolute disadvantage. The surrounding people who were watching the battle were also amazed. Some of the older martial arts practitioners still vaguely remembered how amazing the leader of the Chunyang Dao sect, Ling Yunzi, was when he was young. Unfortunately, after taking over the position of the leader, he became more and more low-key, and even didn't appear in Jianghu anymore. However, it seemed that the past few decades didn't erase Ling Yunzi's talent and combat strength. Instead, it increased his realm by another half a step. It was estimated that it wouldn't take long for another supreme expert of the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm to appear in the Dao sect. At this time, Chu Xiu could only consider himself unlucky to encounter Ling Yunzi at his peak. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.